Here.
Member Pro Tem Rodriguez. Here. Member Ortiz. Here. Councilmember Jones. Here. Councilmember Garcia. Here.
You please stand for the pledge. Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Meeting? Yeah, all right, excellent. So we're gonna start off right away with the vignette next to the most to do again. And here we go.
How do I know? A lot of people, when they think of the phrase, how do I know? They always want to put the what behind it. How do I know what I'm supposed to do? The question that you really should ask is, how do I know why I'm here? Because when you know your why, your what becomes more clear and more impactful. If you know, like for instance, people know that I do comedy, but that's what I do. My why is to inspire people to walk in purpose. So I can do comedy, I can write books, I can be in a movie, because all of it is motivated by my why. In fact, I have a new web series out called Michael Jr. Break Time. We probably just did the 6th episode. It's on YouTube. So every single Wednesday at 3 o'clock, we drop a new episode on YouTube of Michael Jr. Break Time. What it is it's me. I travel around the country and I do stand-up comedy, in case you didn't know. And in the middle of my comedy set sometime, I'll stop and just talk to my audience. And we've been filming this, and it's, you know, it's pretty cool. So we're in Winston-Salem. I'm gonna show you a clip from Winston-Salem. And I'm just talking to this guy in the audience, and he tells me that he's a musical instructor at a school. So I was like, all right, you're a musical instructor, you know, can you sing? Let me hear you sing a song. So this is what happened at the last episode of Michael Jr.'s Break Time. Check it. So you're a musical director?
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Wow. That bro could sing, you know what I'm saying? All right. Now, once you give me the version, is if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick, if you know which version I'm talking about, just see if that exists. Let me see what you got. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch. Here's what I want to be catch. First time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. Second time, he knew why he was doing it. When you know your why, your what becomes more impactful because you're walking towards or in your purpose.
All right, so what we're gonna do to get started is I'm gonna have you do a quick introduction, and this is just, purpose behind this is to get you all kind of talking and be a little more curious about each other, and there might be some questions up here that you have not answered before. And so there's the first 3, I'd like you to know your name, which we all know, but go ahead and say that again, your daytime occupation, And then what's your length of service here on the city council? And then your response to these two prompts. The first one is tell us something about your child that has shaped you as an adult. And then share with us your why, as Michael Jr. just talked about there with the singer, not why are you on the council, but what is your why? Is for being on the council. And so I'll give an example real quick of what I would say, just to kind of get your thought process flowing. So my name is Fred Van Vleck. I have been a lifetime educator, and for the past about 12 years now, I've worked with the National Center. Actually, the National Center is now my company, and so it's my pretty much full-time job. That's what I do now. And I go all over the place to different city councils, school boards, all over California, Oregon, and Washington, work with the state prisons as well. I've been doing that, like I said, now for quite a while. And then my response to the prompt, something about my childhood that has shaped me as an adult. I consider myself to have the best upbringing. And the reason for that is because my dad was a logger and my mom was a school teacher and eventually a superintendent and principal. And the reason why I really like that upbringing is because I actually became an ag teacher and was a shop teacher and taught power equipment technology and welding. And I still remember when I went to my mom and I told her that I was going to be a logger in the woods. And she looked at me and she said, Fred, that's great. You're going to be the best educated logger in the woods. And you can see that I went to college and did all that, eventually got my doctorate and everything. But that was one of those shaping things for me, is having the blue collar side for my dad and learning all the hands-on stuff, and then the white collar side for my mom. And then my why for being in public services, I'll never forget this. My first job, I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, just down the road here. And my first job out of college was I was the operations manager of a hay compressing plant. We took a normal bale of hay, compressed it down to half its size, and then exported to Japan, where in Japan they fed it to race horses and dairy cattle, because they don't have a lot of room to grow hay over there. So that was up in Dixon, California. Worst job of my life. Oh my gosh, I hated that job. Absolutely did not like it. And I remember my epiphany when I was going to work on Interstate 80. I was off site doing something, and so I was coming back in the afternoon, and I passed a pickup load of FFA students. And I thought to myself, you know what? That's what I want to do. I never had any intention of teaching. In fact, I told my mom many times that I wanted nothing to do with that, because I didn't understand why she did it. I didn't understand her why until I felt that emptiness for me. Everybody's different. Other people like that kind of stuff. But for me, compressing a bale of hay didn't fulfill what I wanted to do. But working with students and really having that impact with students, which is carried into working with adults as well, really fills my why. So I'll let you think about it for about 30 seconds here or so on your responses to these, and then I'll ask for a volunteer. Anybody ready to go first? Oh,
Hi, I'm Paul, your city manager here in Greenfield. Is this on? Can you hear? Luis, can you hear? I think so. Yeah, it's like, okay. I've been with the city for 7 going on 8 years in September. And my childhood, I grew up in Salinas, also out on Oreseco Road. The family has, 120 acres of farmland out there, but we worked every summer, every weekend. The cousins had a ranch, and we, did whatever we did. Moved pipe, sprinkler pipe, drove water truck, weeded, picked apricots, cut apricots, dried apricots, whatever you can think of. Which I think really instilled with my dad's help a really good work ethic. My mom was a special ed teacher, and so she taught out of Barb Blades in Salinas for 20 years. And that was, I got to meet some of her people, and it was a great experience. That shaped me in that I do have that hard, work ethic. I've also spent my first 35 years of my career as a finance professional, either at, smaller companies or before I came to a $300 million ag company. And knowing all those processes really helped me be confident in my job here, but that isn't the piece that's the best part. It's the best part because I'm near to where I grew up, but also to be able to help the people in Greenfield that's a billion times more, I guess, impactful to me to just help them than any kind of financial. So it's the why is just helping people, with things that I know that they don't know necessarily.
We all get to go, so.
Bob White, I have a real estate and insurance office, been operating that for 40+ years. Been on city council or mayor for city council for 4 years, and now mayor for 2 years plus. Something that shaped me as a child. I remember back in elementary school, when they used to group students and place them in classrooms according to their academic achievement. There was the A group, and there was the B group, and there was the C. I remember 5th grade was difficult for me. So the next year in 6th grade, I was placed in the B group. So that gave me the drive, yes, the desire to not prove to the world that I was not, did not believe it would be in the B. That's kind of giving me a little vibe and vision to as far as why I'm doing public service, my parents were farm workers when I was a kid, and I'm 7 years older than my brother. So the story I heard is mom, they tried to have a second child, and mom was carried about 3 times. The next time, my brother was born, but he had some trouble, he couldn't keep anything down. Swallow it, he spit it right back up. He got down to like very low weight, 3 or 4 pounds, I think. And they finally figured it out. By feeding him like every couple hours, they were able to get him kind of old. Well, my parents were getting started. They were very young, didn't have anything. Well, they took my brother from King City to Denver. Oh, Denver's not cheap. I remember a bill out, how much it was. At that time, it was a long time ago, so it was $2,000, I think. What I heard, Greenfield Lions Club. My parents had only been in town for a couple of years at that point. Greenfield Lions Club stepped in and paid the bill for my brother, Andrew. Which, in my memory, from what I was told, is my dad was so concerned about the bill that he was trying to sell the car that he owed more money on than it was worth, to try and find something that's. So the fact that the Lions Club stepped in and took care of that bill. way that I can give back to the community and give back to the public service.
Should I repeat again? No, we're good. Oh, you almost made me cry, so I'm a little emotional. Um, I'm an HR director for the school district here in Greenfield. I've been, this is going to my 5th month in the city council. What shaped me as a kid was going to work with my parents in the fields. Because my parents, they work in the fields when I was a kid. The why, is just to provide back to my community. I know that most of our, citizens in Greenfield are like my background when I was growing up, that our parents work long hours. And some of the, well, not now, but back in the day, our parents would take us to the fields to work during our breaks, like winter break, summer break. So that's why of trying to make our city better.
Oh, I'll share next. Ariana Rodriguez. I am a college programs coordinator for my day job, and I have been on council since February of 2023. And something that shaped me into the adult that I am now is was actually my being the child of divorce. A lot of people can probably relate, but it really shaped me because at the same time that my mom was going through divorce, I was 9 years old at the time. I had 4 other siblings. I didn't have 2 youngest from her, and she eventually remarried. She was diagnosed with cancer, and she didn't have insurance because growing up, my parents also worked in the fields. As my mom is a US citizen, but she was out in the fields with my dad, who was not a US citizen, because that was how they could make a living together. And so she didn't have insurance. And at the same time as going through this divorce, not a great divorce, not a friendly divorce. And so she was really left to be a single parent then. And I'm the second oldest sibling, and I really took on the role at that time of like the other parent, the absent parent in my household. So I think from a very young age, I already had that, like, I don't know, just trying to always push things forward. And so I helped with caring for my younger siblings a lot, making sure they got to school on time, things like that. Like even their first day of school, like I have memories of, I was the one who took them and made sure they got to their classes and stuff. My mom could never do that because she was working, but she made it through her chemo and her treatments, and we made it through that time. But it was a defining time in my life because it showed me the struggle of like real life struggle, but also it showed me how strong just humanity is, like how strong my mom was, how strong any person can be if you have something that you need to do and you're just, you know, trying to survive. So it showed me how strong I could be and the importance of family and community and leaning on people, because my mom was fiercely independent like I am. So she didn't ask for help, but so within our home, we, you know, brought it along. And that has just continued through life. Like I'm the caretaker in my friend circles, in my family. And I care about helping other people or people that need help in some way. And I've always, to a fault, a lot of people would say like, I always help if I can. And that led me to wanting to apply for this position. As everybody who kind of here knows how I came to be here. I came and applied and was appointed. But I also have wanted to be involved for a very long time and followed things going on. But if I don't have the time to devote to something, I wait, and I waited because I was raising my own children then and doing my stuff. But then it felt like the right time when a position opened that I have more time to devote to public service now, to actually be more active in my community. Not that my focus is off family now, because it's always going to be, but I have 2 adult daughters who are a lot more independent now, thankfully. So I wanted to be part of something like council because people like my parents didn't have time to be worrying about like, are our streets safe? Are, how's our drinking water in the town? Like, you're just trying to survive. You're not worried about the infrastructure of the city, and so you really rely on other people who have the time and can invest their time and energy into making sure that our city is well run, that things are getting done, that there's opportunities for children like me, where my parents were busy working and we need something to do after school, things like that. So all of that shaped me as a person and why I decided to even be part of council and try to affect change in those ways for the community. I think that was really long, but I think mine was the longest.
We're not done yet.
Break my record, guys.
Okay, my name is Rachel Ortiz, and daytime occupation I probably should say jack of all trades. Because I do a lot of different things. I primarily do bookkeeping, but slowly transitioning into being personal assistant to different private citizens. And so I started my business at one point when I quit my job working for an international seed company. I went out on my own and stayed about 2 weeks on the sofa and then realized, well, somebody's got to pay the bills. I'm single. And nobody's here, so I don't have a lot of money, so better get out there and do something. So I decided to start my own business in 2016. And I always knew that going through life, that I was going to find success very late in life. Just something that I always knew. I wasn't stressed about not being successful younger because I always knew that it was going to come later in life. It was just something that was implanted in my brain, and I didn't worry about anything. So that's what I do right now. I work for a lot of nonprofit companies too, and so that's kind of where being, wanting to do things for people. So I've been on city council for about 2.5 years now, and let's see. What shaped me as my childhood, I'd have to say it was my mother. She raised, my father wasn't around too much. So my mom raised 8 of us. And the older kids, they went to college, and then the most of us younger ones, we kind of fell apart. The older ones went away because they were our caretakers, and then they went to go live their lives. And the rest of us, we were up and down all over the place. But my mom shaped my life because my mom, I can always remember her feeding 8 of us. And her job was, she was a cook in a labor camp, but close by where you can go. And so my mom cooked for anywhere from about 250 to 300 people 7 days a week. She got Sunday afternoon. I've never saw my mom cry because she felt sorry for herself. She never complained. We woke up every morning and we had fresh clothes for school. That's 8 of us, 8 of us. And then she proceeded to cook. She got up at 3 o'clock in the morning to make food for these 300 people when they went out. When she would come back out, she'd get off work, then she would come in and she would take care of us and make sure we were on the buses. We had a dog. She trained the dog, a black dog. So the dog would walk us to the bus because we had to walk away from the park. Just that she trained the dog to walk us. So we never worried. She never worried about us because the dog was there. The dog would wait for us when we come home. But she was constantly working and she never complained. And she was very giving. We always had people every day, every weekend, we'd have probably anywhere from 10 to 15 people at her home that she would provide food for. She always cooked for them. She never complained. Our home was crazy with 8 kids because all of us had a lot of friends. So you're talking about probably at least 2 friends each. One of my brothers would overdo it. He'd always have like 6, 7 friends over at one time. It was just something that we had, growing up. And, she provided for us and she never complained. And, I became a mother at 16 years old. And so she just told me, what are you gonna do? And I said, well, I'm gonna raise her. And she said, well, what's the plan? I guess I'm gonna go to work. And, I stopped school in the 7th grade because I was being bullied, so I didn't go to school anymore. I thought, what am I gonna do? I've got these kids, I've got a child, I've got to do something here. And so, I worked for a gentleman who started teaching me accounting. And after that, I went to another job, and my mom had always told me to enjoy what I'm doing. She was, even if it's not the best job, always learn from it, and then it's gonna take you just a step to the next one, and it'll take you on. And keep on going, but don't feel sorry for yourself. Nobody's gonna feel sorry for you. I don't wanna see you crying either. We'd cry, but she'd be like, it just wasn't, don't feel sorry for yourself. Be strong. Because when I grew up, when she would say, when she grew up, they couldn't do anything. We were told what to do, how to do it, when to do it. And it was only, you're gonna have kids and you're gonna become a mother, and that's what you're gonna do. And she says, and I want all of you to be more, So like she says, she didn't raise any dummies, but what they did on their own afterwards was their own fault. And she really shaped me. She passed away 3 years ago, over 102 years old, almost 103, right before her 103rd birthday. And she was still cooking and cleaning 3 weeks before she passed away. So that's the kind of drive that I have. And that's what I've taught my daughters and my grandkids. I'm very not lucky, I'm blessed because my kids have done so well, my grandkids are. And, but I instilled that in them because that's what she gave to me. It was the best gift that she could have ever given to me, was to work hard and, and to provide for others. And that's the way that I am. I work hard, I earn money, and I spend it all on my kids, and I don't care. My mom left this world with her Social Security check. That's what she lived on. And just a very simple, very easy life, not complicated. She didn't get mad. She didn't cuss, nothing. And everything she would say would be, don't worry, it's gonna work out. I go, Mom, so-and-so did this to me. Don't worry about it. It'll all take care of itself. So that's the thing I tell my kids and my grandkids, don't worry about it. It's gonna work out. My daughter says, like, I hate when you tell me that. I don't really think, but it works out, doesn't it? She's like, yeah, it always works out. Why I went into public service was I was really involved in the city. I was always on this side. And then the opportunity came to be on that side. And so I did that, but it's really opened the door to so many other things and to meet so many people. And I'm really aware of things in our community and what we need. And I feel for our houseless people. I feel for these kids that are caught up in the gangs and just everything. And I can sit home and complain, but I'm not a complainer, I'm a doer. So you get up and you do and you get involved, and that's all it takes is get involved. If you're gonna sit home on the sofa and pound on your keyboard, you're not gonna get anywhere. So that's how I got here.
Thanks, Rachel. And take us home.
All yours, girl.
I'll go next. My name is Belen Garcia. I go by Belen. Now, as an educator, I was Miss Bubba because people couldn't pronounce Belen correctly. It was Belen, Belen, Berlin, Bolin, all kinds of names, but I respect my name so much. I was born in King City, which I refer to as the city of King. Belen translates to Bethlehem. And that has shaped my life. My parents were farm workers. They lived out on McKinley Ranch. Very poor, but they were rich in love for each other as my parents. And they loved all 6 of their children. And they loved everybody that came to work for them. They were farm labor workers, but they were also contractors. My mother believed in education. So our priority, my parents taught us, was God first, family second, and country. And my father was a World War II veteran, so that's where country comes from. God never stopped being number one in my life. My daytime occupation has been my lifetime occupation, which is serving God. And it's kind of weird to share, but I think it's time in my life that I share things like when I was 3 years old, I was walking away from McKinley Ranch down to Arroyo Seco. My Uncle Cruz picked me up and took me home, and Mom asked me where I was going. And I said I was going to go talk to God. Where? At the river. Why? Because the river is where God lives. So I would go to the river and they'd let me go, and my parents would always take me to the river. And I would play with the angels. And my mom and dad allowed me to be weird, different. They never told me to stop believing what I saw, what I heard. So I grew up as a person who believed in miracles because it's written in the Bible. I believe that incredible things can happen. The hardest lesson I had to learn was forgiveness, and that was my father taught us forgiveness. That no matter who is shooting at him or killing his war buddies, he still had to learn to forgive his enemies. And when he was a farm labor contractor and his crew was being attacked by a union that wanted better life for farm workers, my father still forgave them, even though my mom miscarried through one of the incidents. There were guns pointed at my family and myself in the fields. We had to go into the fields at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning to pick the crops because my father refused to join a union. And there was the Teamsters and there was the farm workers union. And my father just believed in God. I work for God. I don't work for anybody. I work for God. I grew up in that. We always put God first, and we forgive everybody who comes to hurt us because, like God said on the cross, they don't know what they're doing. So I grew up being bullied at school because I did not speak English. I grew up wanting to be better. I remember sitting in the 3rd grade classroom, reading pages ahead, figured out which paragraph the teacher was going to call on me, and practice so I could get it right, so I could sound American. Eventually from St. John's, I went to Greenfield and they put me in the A group. And I didn't know what the A group was, but I knew that I was the only one going home with homework. And I was the only one staying up at midnight to do homework. And I didn't ask why everybody else got to play. I just kept being in the A group. I was dedicated to my church. I was dedicated to the sacraments. I was dedicated to whatever God wanted me to do. At 10 years old, I had dedicated myself to not public service, but God's service. And I thought I was going to be a nun. And so I grew up with, you can't sin. No matter what you do, you can't sin. I would go to confession, I would make up sins, and then I would have to confess that I just lied that I made that sin. I tried so hard to please my parents, my family, but no matter what, I was always the oddball. There were 6 kids, 5 of them looked like Garcias, and then there was me. And I never knew what I wanted to do. I just knew what I had to do, and that would be available to whatever God would send me. I wanted to be a missionary, and I was on my way to South America when the guerrillas blew up the place where I was supposed to go, so that didn't happen. So then they sent me to Mexico City, to go to Mexico City and be a youth director there. And the earthquake hit, and that shut that down. And so then I asked God, then where? I wanted to be out in the world, send me. And I ended up in Greenfield. I got a call from Phyllis Edwards, a principal, who heard that I had a teaching credential. She interviewed me and I accepted the job. I ended up in Greenfield. I thought I was gonna go to the pyramids, and I thought I was gonna go to the Amazon. I thought I was gonna go see miracles happen around the world, and I end up in Greenfield. I stayed, and then my calling came, and I left Greenfield for a while. I thought 3 months, it was 30 years. But I left to learn to pray. I wanted to learn to pray for the sick, because I believed in miracles. And I got to see miracles in the classrooms, in my communities, and then around the world. And I found out that there is no end to what service is. It's not about our abilities, it's about our availability. And when someone came knocking on my door after I retired, after some 35 years, I still continue to be a servant of God. And when someone came and asked if I would serve the city of Greenfield, I thought I was going to retire. But of course, so when I saw the list of all the possibilities of ways to serve Greenfield, there was only really two choices. Well, there was the first choice, and then there was everything else. First choice I wanted to be is mayor. I said, well, if I can be anything, I want to be mayor. But then I heard Bob White was running. Well, I'm not running. I respect the man too much to vote or even run against him. So I chose nothing at that time. And then an opportunity came to come and help me serve 2 years. I said I could do 2 years. And my why is because I don't think I'm too old to serve. My why is I think we can keep doing something. My why is because I really fell in love with all of you guys, and I want to stick around and help out. Unfortunately, this position does not allow us to get to know each other confidentially as a group. This is a really hard setup to be in the city council where we can't gather and speak. And I don't know you except the little things that you share. But what I want you to know from me is that I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to take your jobs. I'm not here to grandstand. If I had the money, I would pay for that recreation center. I would pay for our water to be fixed. I believe in miracles. Maybe I need to go pray over that water. I just want to keep helping out however I can. I don't think I'm too old. So why am I here? Because God said so.
Thank you. What great stories to hear from each of you. I'm going to jump into a little bit about what we're going to do this evening and talk about some housekeeping things, some celebrations, and some norms as well. So just housekeeping wise, I've got a schedule here until 9 o'clock tonight. So I want to check in with all of you, make sure that worked for you. Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
All right. So that's the plan. I would be really surprised if the end is early, because I actually have more stuff for us than what will take us to 9 o'clock. And I do that intentionally because this is an opportunity, as you said, you'll get to spend time together as a council. And one of the things that I always thought was very interesting about this, so think about our state legislators, in the state senate or the state assembly. Are they governed by the Brown Act? You know, not the Brown Act, all the time, they're making all kinds of deals behind closed doors right now about what the budget is going to look like. You can't do that. You don't get the opportunity to come together and have some of those things. And even when you have a team building thing like this, you're being streamed. And we have an audience out there watching what we're all doing. And so it's a unique thing. And we'll talk a little bit more about that the Brown Act really limits your ability to do some of these things. So it's nice to be able to come together in a much different situation because you never get to do the team building. You just come in and are asked to make decisions and provide direction for the city of Greenfield and provide direction for Paul to work with his team to make what it is that you want to come true for the city. And then he, with his team, becomes all about the how to get it. So that's really interesting. So if anyone, we're a relatively small group, I'm gonna let you guide the breaks. When you want to take a break, just say, hey, let's take a break for a minute. And we'll do that. If you need to use the restroom, we'll just take a break. It's a small group, not a big deal. And you can take as long or short breaks as you all want. You're all adults, so I'll just ask you want to take a break, how long you want, and then we'll figure out a time for you all to come back. One of the other things I really like to start with as well is just celebrations that you may have, either personally or professionally. I don't want to take a long time with this, but just a minute or two to talk about any celebrations that you may have. I'll give you one. Today's my birthday.
We get cake.
His birthday.
After you get past a certain point, you don't get to celebrate it. I call it, so here, when you get to be my age, you no longer refer to it by the year, you refer to it by levels. And so I'm a level 5. And I get to enjoy a very long time being level 5 before I become level 6. And so doesn't it sound much better? I told my daughter that one time, she was very upset, this was years ago, she said, I'm only a level 0. Anyways, other celebrations.
My granddaughter's birthday,
Excellent.
my granddaughter's birthday was Saturday,
Nice.
and oh, my great granddaughter, she graduated from preschool.
Oh.
Always wondered how this works. You graduate from preschool.
It's, you know what, she just thinks she's it, right?
Just go with it.
And I'm sure you don't have anything to do with helping her think she's it.
She does dance, she did gymnastics, she does everything, 4 years old, she did the kids on fire. I call it my investment. My investment.
Excellent.
No, she'll take care of me, I'm like, way. My grandson is in the police academy right now, so.
Excellent.
We're glad to, we'll be flying out to, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Those who graduate, so.
How about you? Any professional ones? Anything for the city to celebrate right now?
No, my daughter's getting married.
Okay.
Your daughter, what?
My daughter's getting married in September.
Okay. Where's she getting married?
Fantastic, that's your older.
I'm getting married.
Well, I've lived through my son getting married. I've not lived through any of my daughters getting
There
married.
you go, you will at some point.
Oh, yes, I will. I'm
You'll
sure.
experience.
Can you push that my way?
Oh, man, I push everything, absolutely.
Where's she getting married?
She married in Monterey.
In Monterey?
Yeah.
Okay.
She
Nice.
lives in Santa Fe and moved there from Nashville, and she's coming home to get married.
Fantastic. So you all know on the city council, this is great news. He's gonna have to work 10 more years to pay for the marriage.
Yeah. Do you just have one daughter?
Just the one daughter.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I have a professional one to share. I was one of 8 people selected to go to a national conference in New York. So I guess this is also my time to announce my absence next week.
What's the conference?
I'm sorry,
What kind of conference?
the National Conference on Race and Ethnicity. It's educators from all over the world gathering. It's national here, but people come from everywhere for it. And so I'm it's a privilege and an honor to be selected. So I'm really happy to be taking part in that. And I'll share a personal one too, because I'm a mom and I brag about my kids all the time, as everyone knows already. My daughter received an offer to be fully funded for 5 years of her PhD study. And she's gonna be leaving in a couple of months. I'm extremely proud of her. She's the product of a teen pregnancy also, so she's made it a really long way. And then my other daughter just is about to complete. It's education.
Okay.
Yeah. And always everything's been with an emphasis in social justice and equity. And then my youngest is about to complete her first year at UC Santa Barbara, so.
My daughter just graduated a year ago from Santa Barbara.
It's beautiful, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Yeah.
she doesn't do what my daughter did and got addicted to being down there and graduated and didn't leave.
Oh, no,
Very expensive.
not a worry with this kid. She comes home every weekend. And she has a single apartment and she comes home every weekend.
Okay.
She's a homebody, so
Mark my words, I bet that changes.
I hope. It's fun out there. I want her to like it.
Okay, and then the last one, do you all have any type of norms that you like to follow in city council meetings? I'm sure you have the board rules or things like that, but anything with each other? Any protocols as far as your interactions with each other?
No, but I think we definitely need them.
Okay, well, I just always like to bring that up in case there's anything you want to bring up or talk about with that, but we're gonna move ahead. And what we're gonna talk about, this is the success criteria for today, and this is what I'm hopeful that we'll walk out of here with. And could I get somebody to read that first bullet for me, please?
Understand that teamwork is access to buildings.
Someone jump in on the second one?
Understand the functions of your team.
Keep going, somebody.
Apply the tools and assess the functional levels of your team. Assess the need for and value of interventions to address team dysfunctions.
And then finally,
Try various types of interventions based on the level of sponsor.
all right, and so we're gonna talk a lot about this. Obviously, you don't know what all these are yet. At the end of the evening, I'm gonna bring these back up one more time, right before I bring up the QR code that I asked you to fill out an evaluation for me, because I always like to get better. But this is the goals of what we're talking about today. We're gonna jump into the team piece as well here in just a second, because I want to talk about that because it's interesting. Somebody brought it up. I think you brought it up. Let me see if I get it right. Belen. Okay, Belen. All right. You brought it up, and it's this idea of the Brown Act really prevents you from being able to come together like any other, quote unquote, normal team has the ability to do. If you think about Paul with his administrative team, they can come together and they can do things because they're not governed by the Brown Act. The other thing that's completely unique about a city council is all 5 of you, I know some of you were appointed, but all 5 of you probably ran on your individual platform about the idea of what you wanted to bring to the city of Greenfield and what you wanted to accomplish while you were on the city council. Then you're asked to come together as a team of city council folks and govern the city. And it really makes for this unique mix of 5 individuals who ran on their own platforms trying to come together to seek that common good for what you want to accomplish inside the city. And that is a lot easier said than done. And working on building yourselves together so you can get everything growing in the same direction that fits within what you all want to see as individual city council folks for the mayor. And Pat Lencioni, that's who wrote the 5 dysfunctions of a team, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. He has a quote that I begin almost every one of my workshops with because I really, really believe it. And it's not finance, not strategy, not technology. It is teamwork that remains the ultimate competitive advantage, both because it is so powerful and so rare. And so this idea of coming together, even though you are 5 individuals, you can't make anything work in the city without at least convincing 2 more to go along with you. And ideally, in an ideal world, all 5 of you go along as well. How often do you, I always like to talk about this as well. How often do you have 5 voters in the city?
Pretty often here.
Anybody, does anybody ever give you a hard time about having 5 votes?
Not yet.
So I always like to talk about this because sometimes, some of your constituents give hard times to city councils, about having a 5-0 vote. And here's what I always say to that. If anyone ever gives you a hard time about that, it's really simple. The reason you have 5-0 votes is often. The book we're going to talk about today is The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. I've read this book several times. How many of you have had the opportunity to read the book? One of you?
Little bit.
A little bit? I just wanted to tell you right up front, it does not matter. If you have not read the book, the workshop is not built upon having you read the book. If you've read the book, fantastic, that's great. What the workshop is really built upon is the answers that you all gave to those 5 dysfunctions that Pat Lencioni talks about in the book. And we'll spend some time talking about each one of those and really work with them. But one of the things that I like to bring forward is a study that the McKinsey Group did. And the McKinsey Group is this huge firm that studies anything, and they just do studies across the nation. And this particular study was a big study that they did right after COVID. And so it came out in October of 2023. So it's a couple years old now. But the interesting thing is there's been some Gallup polls that have followed this up that have shown that it's even continued to decline a little bit more. And what the McKinsey report asked was, how much are employees engaged into the workforce? And this is what they found. They found that 10% self-reported that they were quitters. Their body is here, but their soul has left the building. 11% are disruptors. I kind of like to call these folks the saboteurs. These are the folks who will do anything they can to sabotage any new initiative or anything that you're trying to do with the city. 32% are mildly disengaged. There's kind of a vogue term that went with this recently, and it was called the quiet quitters. These are the people who get here at the last minute, do the bare minimum just to get by, and leave as soon as they can. The mildly disengaged. So at best, 53% of our population self-reported across the nation that they were mildly disengaged. 38% said that they were reliable and committed, and 4% said that they were thriving stars. So as you think about the city, what I'm kind of curious about is, does this accurately reflect the work that's happening inside the city, the employees you have here in the city, who are all under Paul's leadership, you got Paul, or do you think that it's different?
I hope it's
One more
different.
time.
You know?
Right. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk about that. So you're in nice table groups right now. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to turn to your partner, who's right next to you. Remember your microphone is on. Don't forget about that. This is being streamed out. I always want to remind you about that. We don't want to have a hot mic moment. But talk a little bit about whether you think this reflects the city or not. Go. Okay, about 30 more seconds for this conversation. Okay, start bringing in those conversations. any of the three groups like to share anything about what you discussed?
I would love to say that, you know, we reflect that, but I feel disheartened when I was out door to door. I think we are more quitters than anything else. People who don't vote, people who don't come for meetings, people who, they complain a lot, but they don't even complain. At least we have a couple people that show up and, you know, they say something, but most of them, I think they just let everybody else do whatever. But as far as Thriving Stars, I think we have more than that.
And I just want to clarify, you're talking about citizens in the city.
Yes.
Great, okay. Anyone else?
We talked more about like the workers, like city workers and at least those that we engage with seem like they would be on the reliable and committed side. We don't necessarily engage with like the whole city workforce, but from what we see. And then like Marcy pointed out too, if there would be like more signs of dysfunction if we had like a lot of the quitters and disruptors, right? And I think just the evidence of things are working well, things are moving along shows that we probably have more people on this side than that side. Hopefully, or at least we hope so.
Now we're gonna talk to Paul. No pressure.
When it's dealing with daily basics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My thought was, just like you guys, thinking, things are getting done, so
Yeah.
I'm thinking that we're skewed a little more to the right. You know, people are engaged. Committed, so.
And it's not fair for me to answer, but I'll do it anyway.
Yes.
Done this for 7 years, and we've gotten rid of a few people. And we hope that they're on the lower side. And we've been lucky enough, smart enough, whatever, to hire some really good people as well. And you've seen what these people make. They're encouraged the right way. We think they're the right people. I agree with all of you. I think we are skewed to the reliable, at least reliable here, for good reasons. They're given encouragement. And I think we appreciate it.
Now, the reason I'm asking you this and the reason that I showed you this is because if you think about this, we always want to do whatever we can to move people to the right up here. And as you think about moving people to the right, what is your role as a city council? If you're functional as a team, as a city council, you are going to attract people into your city who want to work for your city, and you're going to motivate those folks who are working for you. Because if you're fighting amongst each other or knocking along or not in concert in developing the what it is that you want for the city of Greenfield, asking your staff to carry out the how of what it is, if you're vague, ambiguous, or disagree on that, you're going to push your folks to be more down here. And so it's so important for you to come together as a team and identify and really work on the what it is that you want for the city, and then work in concert to provide that direction to staff so they can achieve that as they work out into the future. So as you think about your role on the city council team, and specifically this team of the 6 of you, what do you consider to be your greatest strength that positively impacts the council's success? And then on the flip side, this is a tough question. I just want to let you know right up front. On the flip side, what behaviors do you think you might have that unintentionally hinders the progress of the team? I want you to think about that individually for a second. I'll give you an example answer. When I was a school superintendent, I was a school superintendent for 12 years. And during my time as a superintendent, my greatest strength was I was really, really good at coming up with solutions and discerning whether or not those are going to be good solutions or bad solutions. I could do that all day long. I loved doing that work. My detractor was I was a horrible cheerleader. I was not good at bringing the team around those ideas and really rallying them and getting them to really want to do them because they didn't want to disappoint me or the organization. That's something that I wasn't good at. I had to get somebody in to really help me with that. I wish that I was better at that. For example, anybody like to go?
I'll have that, yes. I think my calmness and reliability, the pressure's on all the time, I think I'll be good at that. Kind of goes with the other side on the, to answer the other question, is that sometimes I don't set things quite quick enough to calm things back down. Get a little out of hand.
I think I would say that my greatest strength would be that I'm a team player. I see it from every side. Sometimes we might not agree, right? But agree to disagree. Come back to me on my least strength. So I will come back to that. Let me think about it a little bit more on the second.
I can go next. I think one of my greatest strengths is that I really love learning and like investigating and researching if I don't understand something. So with these positions, like there's often stuff that being new, it's all new and trying to understand things. So I think it's important to ask questions, even if you are like worried that you're gonna look stupid because you should know that or whatever. So I'm not afraid to ask the stupid questions, I would say is actually a strength. And then I think that what hinders me is that when I feel strongly on something, like I feel strongly on that. And then it's really hard for me to back down when like I'm standing on my principles or whatever, then that would be a weakness because then it makes me like more inflexible to others because it's like, you're not going to change my mind. But at the same time, I recognize I'm probably not going to change yours, and so I think like Marcy said, the agree to disagree is probably something that that needs to be my mantra.
And that becomes really challenging, and thank you for sharing that. It becomes really challenging when you find yourself in a minority position, and the council carries forward with wherever the majority is at. And so that's one of the really key things as you think about the five dysfunctions of the team is having enough trust in your fellow council members to have that unfiltered conflict and dialogue to really build that buy-in of other folks and accountability and ultimately the results. And then if it doesn't roll your way, not undermining the direction of the council, because when we find ourselves in the minority, it's not fun sometimes. And it's even more hard when you can't really undermine because the decisions are made.
For me, one of my greatest strengths, I can problem solve. If something happens, I try to figure it out what's the best way, to get where we need to get, and forget about everything else, and just concentrate on that, and try to make positive comments, to and encourage people, to try to go this way, let's do it this way. Doesn't always work. I think, and just positivity, just trying to stay positive and think about, the good outcome. Not really, I don't not like negativity at all. So on the flip side of that, where I come in right here, is that when people come at me in a negative manner, I shut down. That's it. I don't allow negativity in my life. It's just the way I am, if anybody ever walked into my home, I'm only positive. I have water fountains and plants and birds, and it's like you're walking into I don't know, some things, and I only want you, I don't allow anybody to come into my home with anything negative. Leave it at the door, don't bring it in. which leads me to, when somebody does bring it towards me, I shut down right away. I don't want to hear it, I don't want to discuss it. And that is probably one of my biggest challenges right there, that to be more open and not put that wall up right away. Try to see past, try to see where they're coming from. If they're coming a negative manner, I'm not gonna, I truly not.
I'll go next.
You were just sitting next to her, so.
Yeah.
As well.
So you said something, we have a lot in common, with the being positive. I think my greatest strength is that I believe in winning. I believe in being the best. I believe in being part of the best and, encouraging others to be the best, because I want to win. The downside on that is that in figuring out what to do and looking for solutions, like I could look in Home Depot all day long, solving problems and bring this material and do this and that, I don't include everybody else in the plan, or maybe ask for help. Hey, what do you think? I'm stuck on this. Because I don't want to be a failure. I don't want to let you down. I don't want to fail the city council. I don't want to fail Greenfield. I don't want to family. I don't want to fail God, family, or country. I mean, that's a lot of weight to carry. So that would be not a very good thing, carrying it off.
Oh, no, not yet.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think, one of my greatest strengths is just being able to, and this is relatively new, I really haven't been able to exercise this most of my career. But, team building, just at the executive level, we have some executives that are really, really good at what they do. And I let them take the ball that we agree that they should be taking, and let them do their jobs. And I think that's been very positive. I'm also, part of that is, it's about building trust between me and executives as well as line staff. Letting them take the ball is a good thing, but then maybe one of the things that intentionally hinders it is maybe letting them go too far on certain things, where it may not be in alignment with our strategic plan, may not be what council wants, may not be what the public wants in certain cases. And so me tightening that up a little bit probably.
I think I got mine.
Okay.
I think trusting at times too much, if like, Ariana said here, I think asking questions, I do ask, but sometimes I trust the process, right? That whoever it is, in this case, I'm gonna put, Paul on the hot seat here, sorry, Paul. But if he's bringing something, then I'm supporting that because I'm trusting him that he has done his work. But that also hinders at times because maybe I miss something, so that's how I see it.
Thank you, everybody, for being open with constraints and areas that may hinder, because that's going to build into some of the conversation that we're going to have today. And I just want to define for you, what is a team? Absolutely, the city council is a team. And when I talk about the city council, the team, I force include your city manager. It's the six of you, it really is. He is your executive branch. He is the one, if you think of the three, anybody remember the three branches of the federal government?
Right now, we only have executive.
A political conversation, we're gonna work hard to it.
It's only one. Arthur's.
One of the three branches?
Legislative.
Legislative, executive, and
Sure.
judicial. And what's interesting about city councils is you will exercise all three of those branches, because you appoint your executive branch. What do you do as a legislative branch? There you go, exactly. And then what do you do in your judicial role? Exactly. On whether or not your laws were upheld or your policies. Exactly. So it's really unique in the city council because really in no other place other than school boards and city councils do you operate in all three of those areas. So that certainly doesn't happen in state government or at the federal level as well. So teams, two or more interacting with independent individuals who come together to achieve specific goals. We have formal groups and informal groups. This is certainly a formal group. Absolutely a formal group. Groups whose members work intensely on a specific common goal using their positive synergy. And I heard strategic plan. That makes me happy because that means that you have some priorities for the city that you're working on. And that's exactly what we're talking about, these specific common goals, using their positive energy, individual and mutual accountability and complementary skills. Okay? And complementary skills. I'm going to skip the discussion for right now. So now understand not everybody contributes to the team in the same way. And I want to bring back in just a quick conversation for those of you who went through the DISC profile. And maybe you remember this story or maybe you don't, but I'm going to tell it again. Does anybody remember, or not remember, so it's the wrong word. Does anybody know what the difference is between the backyards on the East Coast and the backyards in California? No fences on the East Coast, right? For the most part, and I'm just generally. So imagine ourselves on the East Coast. New couple just moves into a house. Couple sitting down for breakfast, and the wife looks over at the husband and says, "Wow, have you seen the neighbor's wash?" He said, "No, what do you mean?" "Well, it's horrible. Their whites are dingy, their clothes are dirty. Somebody needs to go over there and teach them how to do their laundry." He didn't really think much about it. So second day comes around, they sit down for breakfast again, and she looks out the window. "Man, I just can't believe how horrible their wash looks. Somebody needs to go over there and talk to them." He didn't pay much attention to her. Third day comes. They sit down for breakfast. And she looks out the window and she says, "Did you go talk to the neighbors about their wash? Their lights look fantastic. Everything looks clean. Everything looks great. It's amazing." He said, "No." He said, "I wonder what happened." He said, "I washed the windows." And so as you think about that, and think about what you come to the city council with, we all have a window in front of us with dirt on it. And our goal becomes to recognize that dirt that we have on our window in front of us. And one of the ways that we can recognize that is through the DISC profile. And most of you went through that last time. And just a quick reminder of what that is. First off, there is no, and this is super important, there is no one of these four behavior types that's superior to the others. We just think about life in a different way, and we go about handling ourselves and expressing ourselves in different ways. And in fact, it's great to celebrate the differences between those because each of us have our own lens, and that's what makes us unique. Because if we were all the same, wow, that would be boring. We wouldn't even need a city council if we're all the same because everybody would agree on everything. I don't think that would be very much fun. Now, as you remember, there are four. I don't know what happened on that slide, but anyways, there are four different types. There's the D, the I, the S, and the C. And I like to use the analogy of going through the forest. The D type personality going through the forest is very interesting going from point A to point B. They go very quickly, very efficiently. And when they get to point B, they look back and behind them, they notice that they have the whole forest clear cut behind them. They didn't even realize it. They looked by, "Oh, did I do that?" But they got there very efficiently and very effectively. They're very direct and very dominant. So the pros are efficient, effective, move on to the next task. The cons are they have collateral damage. I's, they get there. This slide is all messed up. It must be something about how it got formatted coming up here. But anyways, it doesn't matter. The I is all about the influence. This is the person when they're going from point A to point B in the forest, that it's not enough for them to go from point A to point B, but they need to stop at every tree. And when they stop at every tree, they're gonna talk to every little seedling and every little sapling, they're gonna know them all by name. And the advantage of this person who has this I-type personality is that people are gonna wanna do things for them just because they don't wanna disappoint them. The disadvantage is it's going to take the I-type personality forever to get to point B because they're often late. Because they get so caught up and they care so much about the people they're talking to, it's hard for them to get the task achieved. So the advantage, people love them, they have great relationships. The disadvantage is that they get so caught up in those relationships, sometimes it's hard for them to get projects completed. The C is a very conscientious person. Every I dotted, every T has to be crossed. When they're making their journey through the forest, they go very methodically, and it's not enough for them to stop at the bottom of the tree and look up and estimate how tall the tree is. They actually have to climb the tree and drop a tape measure down and measure it to the 16th of an inch to determine how tall the tree is. Data, data, data. Great people to work in your fiscal services, your business services department, because it's going to be down to the penny. They're going to be amazing at that. But sometimes they get into what's called analysis paralysis because they want to have the perfect solution to everything. And there is no such thing as a perfect solution many times. And so without having the perfect solution, they're hesitant to make the decision. Really good at the data, but everything has to be perfect before they can make the decision. And then finally, we have an S-type personality, very much into the systems and the steadiness, very much into how we've always done it. An S-type person, as you think about them going from point A to point B in the woods, we've all walked in the woods before and we've seen those game trails that just kind of meander in and out of the woods. The S's love to follow those trails because they know it'll get them there. It might not be the most efficient, effective way, but they know we've done it, it works, and it'll work again. So the advantage of S's is they're loyal and they follow the systems. The disadvantages are they do not like change. They want to do it the way that we've always done it. And sometimes that stifles the ability to try something new. The D's, the I's, the S's, and the C's. Here's where your group, when I did this profile last time, really ended up. A lot of C-type folks and one I up here. And so you're missing in the D and the S. And I think, yeah.
This isn't with the current makeup though.
That's right.
Yeah,
This
this
was
has,
before, so I don't know where you're at right now. This
Yeah.
is Just tying in what we went to last time. We didn't do a new one for this, but I wanted to build upon this to talk about today's work with the 5 dysfunctions. So I was going to clarify that, but thank you for bringing that forward. So this is where the group was at. And just to give you the reminder, these were the people who took it last time, which was a different group of folks, some of you the same, but also wanted to remind you, and I'm just curious, if you're not up here, what do you think your personality would be? Would you be a D, that direct person, goes from point A to point B very efficiently, very effectively?
Yes.
Would you be the I, very much into how people feel and get your stuff done through influence on other people? The C, data, 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 data. Or the S, the systems. I like to follow the systems and go the way that we've always done.
I am S.
So you think you're an S,
A D.
a D?
Yeah.
Are you sure about that?
That's a D.
Right. So it kind of gives you, so if you go back to this, perhaps it brings some more into the D and the S. All right. So now, as you think about this in the synergy, you think about bringing all those different styles together and recognizing our window that we have in front of us and the dirt that we have on our window if we're a D, the dirt that we have on our window for an I, or an S, or a C, doesn't matter, we'll have dirt on our window, but if we can recognize that, coming together with other people who think about things differently than us is very helpful, and that's what brings that balance about in the team. Now, as we dig into the 5 dysfunctions of a team, I want to talk a little bit about an overview of it and what Lencioni says about the 5 dysfunctions of a team. What he says is everything is built on this pyramid, and the pyramid has the foundation of trust. Yes, sir.
before you start on that,
Mhm.
would be do some lunch and some dinner and.
Thank you.
Grapes and all that stuff.
Perfect, that's exactly what we need. Thanks for jumping in. Whatever you want. How much time do you want right now?
We're gonna eat while we're working.
Yeah, can we,
It's up to all of you.
I'm good with that.
Yeah. It's gonna be
Mhm.
good same tenants. Good
Yeah,
night.
yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna take a break. You wanna stop the streaming for the time? Perfect. So we're gonna stop for, what is it, 10 or 15? What are we gonna do?
Let's do 50.
15 minutes. So it is 6:26 right now, 6:27, so we'll come back at 42. 6:42.
It's 42. 42, you said?
Hey, I have all of them.
Which?
Wait a second. He said, talk about his function. He said, you got all of them.
She's fun.
Okay. Just.
Yes, absolutely.
For what?
Yes, of course.
people, and only one person came in with a black and white Hawaiian shirt.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Here we go. I'm going to jump in with going over the model of the 5 types. Speaking of big reading, the 5 dysfunctions of a team. I confuse it with another one of his books, which are the 6 types of working genius. So I cross those ones around. Anyways, the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And what Lencioni says is that every team, in order to get to your ultimate area where you want to be, and that is results, starts with the foundation of the pyramid of having trust. If you have true trust with the 5 other folks who are on your council team here, then that will allow you to have unfiltered, productive conflict. Now, remember, there's a difference between productive conflict and conflict for conflict's sake. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. If you're able to have unfiltered conflict, that allows you to have commitment to whatever the decision is, because you've said your piece about your opinion on whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, and then argued about it. So now you're committed. Once you're committed, then you can build in accountability. I'm going to talk about the difference also between committing and contributing, because those are not the same thing. Then you have accountability. So if you're committed, people can hold you accountable to getting it done. And if you have accountability, ultimately, you can build results in where you go. And we're going to spend some time on each one of these individually. If you don't have trust, and we'll come back to this a little bit later too, you have invulnerability. If you are afraid of conflict, think about that for a second. When you don't have that conflict, you have artificial harmony, because you avoided the conflict even though you didn't agree. If you don't have commitment, you have ambiguity. If you have avoidance of accountability, you have low standards. And if you have inattention to results, it builds status and ego for people just claiming that they're the reasons that the results happen. So some common symptoms of the dysfunction. I'll do it. It won't work. Sorry, I just can't do it. You can see here, everybody being tuned out. And then just this idea, remember that was said back in the McKinsey report, the saboteurs, it won't work. Not gonna work. That doesn't really work. Because guess what? Your fellow council members are not going to go away.
Shut up.
All right. So I'm thinking time-wise right now, I'm gonna skip this activity because I want to make sure that we get enough time to get to the end. So as we think about the 5 dysfunctions of a team, what's the reason for doing the assessment? You all did the assessment. You remember doing it? It was a minute ago. It's been a little bit ago, but you all did the assessment. I'm going to share those results today. Here's some reasons, and I'll just let you read over those on your own. It's my understanding that all these fit with some things that you would like to do as a council. Not you, not me, if we're really truly building this idea of a team. It's about us and about how the team comes together and works together. And be careful with quick fixes as well. So here we go. We talked about the 5 dysfunctions just really briefly. And we're going to dig into trust right now. In this one, where if you don't have that trust, you have invulnerability. You don't have the trust, you have invulnerability. So, absence of trust. Would someone please read what happens when you have absence of trust on dysfunction number 1, please?
This occurs when team members are reluctant to be vulnerable with one another. and are thus unwilling to admit their mistakes, acknowledge their weaknesses, or ask for help. Without a certain comfort level among team members, a foundation of trust is impossible.
So you have to be comfortable with each other. And one of the things that's incredibly difficult about that is how do you come together and trust each other with a council when you can only really come together to have a meeting to discuss things? And so you need to take the time to do more things like this. We can't do it all the time, but if you could do something like this, ideally maybe semi-annually, twice a year, or at least annually, to really think about how you're working together as a team. Teams exhibit these symptoms when there's a lack of trust: conceal weaknesses and mistakes, hesitate to ask for help, jump to conclusions about intentions. Did you know that we, as people, judge other people when they decide something on the impact of what they did, but we judge ourselves on our intentions? Think about that for a second. I want to say it one more time. We judge other people when they do something on their impact to us. We judge ourselves when we do something to somebody else on our intentions. Talk about that with your partner for a second, because I think that's a pretty important point.
Agreed.
Yeah. No.
Accurate though. I would
Yeah.
say that's a very accurate description of what we do in life in general
Mhm.
about anything. You judge yourself differently than you do
Oh, yeah, higher standard.
others.
Mhm. I never thought about that though.
But it's also like you will always know what your intentions are,
Mhm.
but you can't ever truly know what somebody else's intentions are. So what you see is the impact. So that's
Yeah.
what's actually affecting you
You-
outwardly.
Yeah, that's true.
15 more seconds on that. Anybody have anything they want to share that they talked about? And it's okay if you don't. All right. Main issue is that shared situational awareness, understanding and trying to put yourself in that other person's shoes to help build that trust of what was their impact. You said something that was relatively profound, in my opinion, and that is that we don't always know what other people's impacts are.
Intentions.
Intention.
I think other people's intentions. And so what we need to do is, whenever possible, assume good intentions. Because most people do have good intentions. Not all people, but most people do have good intentions. So this idea of trust.
At the heart of teamwork lies trust. Team members have to learn to trust one another if they're going to be a real team. Now that sounds obvious, I know, but a lot of people think of trust differently than I do. They think of it as predictive trust. What that means is two people that have known each other for a long period of time, or a group of people that have worked together for a long period of time. They've come to trust each other because they can predict one another's behavior. I know Fred, and he says this is probably what he's going to do. I can trust what he's going to do. That's not what I'm talking about when I talk about trust on a team. When I talk about trust, I'm thinking of something that I call vulnerability-based trust. That's when human beings on a team can and will genuinely say things to one another like, I don't know the answer, I need help, I made a mistake. You're much smarter than I am at that. Can you teach me how to be like you? Or even, I'm sorry, what I did yesterday was wrong. When people can be that emotionally buck naked with one another, it changes the dynamic of a team completely. It helps people trust one another inherently. Now, the only way that we can achieve that vulnerability-based trust on a team is if the leader goes first. People have to know that the leader is going to take that leap of faith and be vulnerable, and that will give them the permission to do so also. Vulnerability-based trust is at the heart of team.
So here's something really interesting as you think about that for a second. So that was Pat Lynch, he's the author of the book. As you think about that, you have a team of 5 different elected officials and your executive branch, the city manager. You don't have, like you do in a traditional team, somebody who is your city manager or the leader of your team. You have your mayor that you elect to be the leader. But what's interesting about that in comparison, ultimately Paul can say, you need to do this because I said you need to. As a city manager, as a mayor, can't really do that, because you all are 1/5 of the city council, and so it creates this unique situation for you all to really think about, because there is no really per se hierarchy to the city council. So what is trust? Will someone please read that first bullet?
In the context of team building, trust is the confidence among team members that their peers' intentions are good and there's no reason to be careful around the group.
And it goes back to that intention and impact conversation. Second bullet, please.
Think of two people, one that you trust and the other that you don't, why do you trust and why do you not?
So think of two people. So right now, I'm gonna have you talk with your partner for a second about that. Think of two people. Please don't use the names. Remember, you have microphones. I'm gonna try to remind you of that often, because we don't want to have an accident. But again, don't use names. But think of one person whom you just do not trust, and one person who you incredibly trust. Why do you trust one of them and not the other?
Talk about our team.
No, just in general. Yep. It doesn't even have to be anybody who is affiliated with the city of Greenville. Yeah, please.
Friendship, betrayal. Once you betray me, that's it. You go on.
Okay, start wrapping up those conversations.
Yeah.
So do that, how do you stream on YouTube? Or you stream or Facebook, your Facebook Live stream? So then you start back. Okay, so what was the difference between those two? Consider something out.
History of watching things that they say and things they do. And looking at consistency of the way they react to in certain areas.
I heard Belen saying, once they do me wrong, that's it, no más, right?
When it comes to betrayal,
Yeah.
yes.
I struggle with that too. I'm very trusting person, but once somebody violates that trust,
That's it.
it's incredibly difficult for me to go.
I'll walk. Right, I can act like, you know, and I don't like doing that. But once my trust is
broken.
And Benny,
All invest-
you talked about your dad earlier with the war, and forgiving. You know, and I'm not making this into a religious conversation, so I'm gonna go there for just a second, but I don't mean it that way. That's what God tells us we need to do, and so I struggle with that. And so we've all got to work on that someday.
But you can forgive without continuing on that same line. You, like I said, I moved them to this side. You're still in my life, you're still there, but I cannot trust you over here. But I forgive you for what you've done, but I just can't forget.
And that's what I struggle with, for sure. So as you think about that and the impact of your intent sometimes, recognize how quickly one action of yours could potentially blow it for a really long time. What are some examples of lack of trust in teams that you have experienced? So you've all been on other teams at some point or another, And what I'm interested in is a conversation about what are some things on lack of trust you've experienced? Let's just do this as a whole group.
I have one fairly recent, being entrusted with carrying out something or doing something and then it not being done, but then not taking accountability. And I think it's not even like things happen, there can be reasons for anything, but it's the response to it, like not being accountable for that thing that you were trusted to do. So, in a work environment that breaks trust.
And absolutely, and there's something else out there, it's called the fundamental attribution error. You ever heard of the fundamental attribution error? What the fundamental attribution error is when somebody does something to us, like doesn't complete something, we have a tendency to blame it on a character flaw that they have. They're an idiot, they're a jerk, they're incompetent, something like that. But when we do that to somebody else, we have a tendency to attribute it to outside factors. Oh, I got a flat tire. Oh, I didn't realize the deadline was today. Oh, whatever it is. And so you attribute it to some reason outside of a character flaw that you have. And so that's something that we also have to consider often. It's a fundamental attribution error. Are we really needing to contribute it to somebody's character flaw? And sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not. So we just have to step back. There's the same type of conversation on impact versus intent. So what Covey says about trust, and I really like how he summed this up, is where you look at the Venn diagram here, where trust and credibility comes from is the overlap of competence and character. So where you have both competence and character and where they overlap, that's where the trust and credibility come. So I'm gonna pop a video on here real quick. This is Covey, and I'm gonna warn you a little bit that this is a little bit dated because he talks about the pandemic, but I still like the impact of what he says. And so the filter that I'd like you to think about is, as a city council person, you deal with emergencies sometimes or crisis in the city. And oftentimes that's what brings some of your constituents out, is when there is a heated, controversial thing that you're asked to make a decision on. So keep that in mind when you listen to what he has to say.
Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen M. R. Covey, the author of this book, The Speed of Trust, the one thing that changes everything. And I've had the privilege of speaking at several WOBE events at the World Business Forum, different parts of the world. And so when WOBE asked me to share just a thought or a message to some of the leaders that are WOBE attendees, the thought that came to my mind is all around trust, and really how, especially during a time of crisis, a disruption that's going on right now in our world, this pandemic, how the ultimate currency for each of us is the trust that people have in us. Trust is the currency that has never been more important than it is today, especially during times of crisis. And our greatest asset is our credibility, is the foundation of that trust. And so, as you think about navigating this extraordinary world that we're in, so many different and difficult ways, commonly people will say, well, the key to navigating through disruption and change is to communicate. And I agree with that. It's just that the point I want to make is how you communicate will make all the difference. In other words, if I get up and I communicate, but I'm not trusted, I'm not credible, no one believes what I say, my communication will be ineffective or even will backfire. But if I'm credible, if I'm trusted, I'll be far more effective in my communication. So I'm going to give you 4 key behaviors that you can demonstrate during times of crisis like today that will really help you build trust fast and be effective in your communication. The first is to make sure that we confront reality. We take things head on, even the tough things. And so when bad news come to you, it's interesting, how you receive bad news the first time will determine whether you receive more bad news in the future. And we can't solve a problem that we don't understand, so we have to get the bad news in, take it head on versus avoiding that, evading that, or kicking the can down the road. People want to know you're confronting the real issues. The second key behavior is to create transparency. These are open. We're not hiding and covering things up. We're open, we're transparent, there's nothing to hide. And we tell people what we know, we tell people what we don't know. And what we don't know, we say, and here's what we're trying to find out, and when we'll tell you about that. In other words, you know I'm real, I'm authentic, I'm transparent, I'm not hiding. Third key behavior is talk straight, meaning we tell the truth. We call things what they are. We're not trying to spin things, we're not trying to sugarcoat things in one direction where we try to just kind of paint a rosy scenario, or with one other extreme of kind of painting a doomsday scenario. We're just trying to talk straight, be honest, tell the truth, so that people know, hey, I may not always like what he says, but I know I can trust what he says or what she says. That's the whole idea. Finally, we want to extend trust. Right now especially, there's a great opportunity for leaders to extend trust to their people. You have remote work going on all over the world. You can have remote work going on and not trust your people. You can have remote work going on and extend trust intentionally and deliberately to the people saying, I trust you. There are these expectations and accountability. I trust you to work in these environments. And that trust will get reciprocated back to you. So those are 4 key behaviors. Confront reality, take things head on, create transparency, you're open, talk straight, extend trust. I can give you one last little tip. The last little tip is this: show people you care. Show that you care, right? You know, caring is so important. It will be paid off enormously. How you treat people now will make a profound difference there. I wish you every success as we navigate through this crisis.
So, as you think about Stephen Covey, his most recent book is, Command and Control to Trust and Inspire. The book is actually called Trust and Inspire. And one of the things that he talked about in the beginning of his book is he uses this analogy, and I really like it. How can you have 2 very trustworthy people in a room? So imagine 2 trustworthy people sitting in the back of the room right here and not trust each other at all. Yeah, one more time. How could you have 2 trustworthy people standing in the back of the room back there? And I mean, this isn't a game. They're trustworthy people. They're truly trustworthy people, yet they don't trust each other at all. Thought on it? You're right on the right track. In order to get trust, you have to extend trust. So if neither of them are willing to extend their trust to the other person, it doesn't matter how trustworthy they are as individuals, without them coming together as a team and extending their trust to each other, they'll never trust each other. And so as you think about that on your council team here as well, when there are times of disagreement, because there will be, and there probably already has been, if you can't extend that trust and really go towards what is it that you think the intent of that other person is as opposed to the impact, you'll never be able to get there to that true foundation of that trust and peace. So Covey talks about also in this, the emotional bank account, okay? So as you think about the emotional bank account, think of trust as deposits and withdrawals. Deposits and withdrawals. And as you think about your relationship with a significant other, with some best friend or somebody whom you're really close with, what do you think might be a trust deposit? And what do you think might be a trust withdrawal?
Talk about an example.
Yeah, So individually right now, think about what might be a trust deposit with that significant other, with that parent or child or friend, it doesn't matter. And what might be a trust withdrawal. So individually right now, think about that. How might that be the same as somebody else on this council? Is there overlap there? So turn and talk to your partner for a minute about how the council and your significant other, or whomever you chose, except me though, might be similar to the withdrawals and deposits of folks on the council. And of course, all included.
Because I think our interaction time is like twice a month. A word of kindness is huge when we treat each other with kindness. And it may not even, people may not even absorb it, nice. But if you say a bad word, or you say the word with one bad tone, it's enough to just. And in this situation, we have to put them watching us. And so. This, the time that they use to respond to each other. And the fact that how do you? They remember something that happened 2 years ago.
All right, take a look at the board up here. What do you think? Do you think that's consistent with what you were just talking about? Well, I think even at work and at home, a lot of consistency there. Teams of trust admit weaknesses, ask for help, accept questions and input regarding their areas of responsibility, appreciate and tap into one another's skills and experiences, offer and accept apologies. That's something I sure have to learn how to do. I don't know why it used to be so hard for me. It's, apologize, it's really not that big a deal to apologize.
It goes a long ways.
What's that?
It goes a long ways.
But I mean, but it also has to be sincere.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but.
Yeah, no,
But is the
no.
ultimate eraser word.
Yeah, you must want to say nothing.
Everything you said before, but.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. My wife does not accept apologies, but.
Yeah. You should know better by now.
Yeah, she accepts apologies from the but.
Yeah.
All right, teams who trust. Teams begin by building trust, and the only way to do that is to overcome our need for invulnerability. In the invulnerability, what he talks about and argues about is that's why we don't like to apologize, because to accept that we did something wrong, we have to be vulnerable and admit that we're not perfect. And what's crazy to me about that is none of us are perfect. And so why do we feel that, not all of us, some of us, why do we feel that need to be perfect? We just have to accept sometimes that we're not, because we're not, because there isn't such thing as that. My wife taught that to me when she bought the sign that said, when I married Mr. Wright, I didn't realize his first name was Always. Are honest about their abilities, not afraid to say they were wrong about something, feel comfortable asking for help, and not afraid to say, I'm sorry. Absence of trust. That's my youngest daughter, like 20 years ago. Team members afraid to ask for help, mistakes are hidden, skills and experiences not shared, and jump to conclusions about the intentions. Notice the intentions, not the intent. The intentions and attitudes of others. We're going to start jumping into some of your things here in just a second.
Yeah.
Other ways to build trust in teams. Someone say something?
No.
Marcy said yay.
So,
Yes.
other ways to build trust in teams, share styles, strengths, and personality differences like the DISC. That's a great way to talk about why you think about how you think about going about something. What your dirty window is, what's the dirt on your window compared to somebody else. Get to know each other outside of work. There's the tough one for city council.
That's what.
Not only do you not get to work all day next to each other and get to know each other, you come together, how often city council meetings, how many times a month? Twice a month. And so you get together twice a month to argue over things. You know?
We
It's like,
talk.
"Oh, is that-"
We talk about it.
No, arguing's okay. Conflict is good. Conflict is good. Good conflict is good. Bad conflict is not good. And we'll talk more about that. Arguing over things in a team that really trusts each other builds a better decision. So don't be afraid of that. All right. Here is what we found on your team. Here's what we found on your team. There would be more trust on our team if, and you see these numbers going down the side, 6 of you said, and you are the 6 right here who took this. 6 of you said if others would let go of grudges. Okay, the thing I just talked about a second ago that I struggle with so much, and we heard it from some of you others as well. When somebody does something to us, we have to work hard to try to figure out what that intent was, as opposed to the impact, and see if we can get beyond that. 5 of you said, got to know each other on a personal level. There's the hard one. That was really hard. Admit their mistakes. 4 said reduce the amount of gossiping. 4 spent more time together. 4 said understood each other's working styles. That's like the disc profile and so forth, hopefully. Would give more credit when credit is due, 4 said. 3 said readily apologize. And then 3 said were more forthright with information. 2 said shared professional failures and successes. Nobody said that none. So on the 5 dysfunctions of a team, question number 1, remember you scored it on this Likert scale, almost never to almost always. And your average score, let me go over the colors real quick, slow down before I go too fast. I have to remind myself to do that sometimes. Green is good. So if you were in the green, that means your score is good and you're doing well. Yellow is caution.
I'm kind of blind.
Starting with the good news, huh?
Red is, so we work on it. Here's the good news. That's why we're here to talk about it and work on it. Because you don't ever get a time to really talk about this and work on it. And so it's okay. That's all we're here to talk about. So team members admit their mistakes. And average, you said sometimes. Team members acknowledge their weaknesses to one another. You're somewhere between rarely and never. And I'll let you read down through those. Yeah, I'm gonna do something that's gonna make everybody uncomfortable for a second. I need everyone to stand up. You don't need to take your stuff because you can move back. Stand up and rotate 1 seat to your right.
We just leave our stuff, I think. We're leaving our stuff, right?
Yes, you'll come. So this just created a new partnership. So that way you're not talking to the same person.
So we could talk about the fun stuff.
Yeah, really.
So talk with your new thought partner about the impact and what you think this means to you on trust with regard to the city council.
You say that one more time?
Talk with your new partner, who's
Yes.
the person you're sitting by,
Yeah.
with what this means to you in regard to trust in the city council.
Now that I read the actual like when he said red is bad, I thought, but then when I read what they actually are, it makes sense.
Yeah, and don't forget, I mean, there's 32 cards, there's a whole bunch of questions in our, that are either. At least, you know,
Well, and maybe because of the way I answered them, but that is kind of how I answered, almost never too early for a lot of these, like,
Yeah,
do we do a lot of these things?
no,
Not-
no, that's right.
not
No, I think
exactly.
it's pretty accurate.
And I remember hesitating on the, teams can comfortably discuss their personal lives with one another. Cause it was like, it'd be nice if we could do that. It's one of those that came up like, not necessarily because we don't want to, we just don't really have, I don't know, some kind of relationship with each other.
Yeah, I'm gonna build one more thing onto this, so you're gonna be able to keep talking about this. But if you look in your slide deck and it's on, if you're not following along, that's okay, because you don't need to, but it's on page 40, page 24, slide number 48. There's a question there, and what it says, based on the last slide, I'm gonna go back to the last slide. What activities can you do as a council to build trust? To build on that conversation that I asked about this, what does this mean to you? Then the next part is, what activities can you do as a council to help build that trust? Go.
It's there's a bunch of these that have to do with the lack of, I'll say, accessibility to one another outside the time we organize. Whatever we could do, I mean, more of these things, that's great, but that's one more per year. That doesn't get you there.
Yeah,
So I don't know, does it mean breaking up into smaller groups, maybe? You know, 1, 2, we go do something, we go do lunch or something like that. I don't know.
Just a reminder, I'm sure you're all good. Don't forget the microphones are on.
Oh, right.
We'll try to remind you of that.
Then you have mine back. I think we only had 7 red from the phone out of 30. Everything else is green. That's what I interpreted that.
No. Give me about another 30 seconds to start wrapping up those conversations.
How long ago did we do this?
About 2-3 months ago.
Yeah.
So even then, I mean. I don't know if I feel the same way. Yeah, we did. Can we do it over?
Yeah, yes.
I just.
All right, if you could bring it back in, please. So what'd you come up with? What kinds of things do you think you can do as a council to help build that trust?
Get to know them. You know, so we can rally them around.
So how can you get to know your?
You just can't be caught.
No, I don't want to.
It's not, it's, wait, it's not called the Gray Act, this isn't shades of gray.
Maybe one-on-one.
So, okay, so will the Brown Act allow you to go to lunch or go have coffee or go have a glass of wine or beer or whatever it is you're into with a fellow council member once in a while?
Yeah.
Sure, no, you can discuss business. What you can't discuss is you can't discuss business that you've already discussed with another council member, because then it's a serial.
Yeah.
Council meeting. You can't have that, but you can go and talk about, just like what you were saying, Bob, you can talk about anything you want that's not related to the jurisdiction of the council, that's really easy. Or if you just get into a rotation where you're just meeting with someone like once a month, so that makes it, you're meeting with one other council member per month, that makes it much more likely that you're not gonna be discussing things in a serial type fashion. Another great thing, Paul, how often do you meet with council members?
I try to.
Okay, do you meet with just one-on-one? Okay, so another strategy that you can do tactically is you can mix that up a little bit and bring in two. And do two-on-one and always have a rotation of who's coming in, so it's never the same two people together until you get through the full rotation of people who are on council, and so then that not only builds a relationship with you, which is fantastic, but it can build a relationship between fellow council folks as well.
I did meet with a council member, and we did not, but, it was a good conversation. And learned a lot about this person that I had no idea, what was going on. They learned about me, and so it's really kind of good deal. Now I know where they're coming from, I know what their things people are. So now it's building on that stuff. And, probably really effective there. Rather to do it.
So how many, let's do math real quick, so if you're gonna do that, you're gonna meet with each other, how long would that take?
I went,
How many meetings would you have?
oh, we just did
So
one.
it's 4, 3, which is 7, 2, which is 9,
Oh.
yeah, so it takes like 9 meetings to make that happen. So that's pretty much your year, so if you have some sort of rotation for your meeting, and Paul, I'm sure would love to come meet with you.
Sure.
It's good for him to hear the conversation that you have when you sit down.
I think we tried that before with the two, and then it just kind of went flat. And never went anywhere.
What's hard sometimes is getting schedules together, I don't think how it happens.
And I think for one, it doesn't have to be about anything. If you want 2 council members and me, let's go have a cup of coffee, and let's just talk about something other than this, and see where that goes.
We kind of do that.
We do that in our business.
Yeah, we do that. We'll talk and then we're just off and we're just talking about our life or whatever. Something is happening in another city or something is beyond it. And then we'll dive and something and we talk about it. Nice, just, I'm getting to know him more as a person. A lot of people think Mayor and I have an alliance, but we've known each other for
A long time.
kindergarten. So we've known each other a long time and I trust him, he trusts me. And I think that's kind of hard for some people on the outside to see that. But there's nothing, we'll tell each other what to do, but we just trust.
And you have a philosophical alignment that you will come back.
And I told him, I think it's age, and Belinda and I talked about that too, that we're older. I think it's still young, but we're lower, but I think it has to be age.
Any other thoughts?
I think, I wonder if we took this test again now, would it be the same since we've had some, little bit, but a little more interaction and a lot of more experience of wanting each other during city council, listening more, getting a better understanding of who you are. You all are strangers to me, honestly, but little by little. And in our city council meetings, it's mostly sit and listen. And, but you can learn a lot by listening to each other speak. And I think, that's why we have to be careful how we say what we say. Because we all have a little small opportunities to do those deposits. And, all it takes is one little comment that was made one time during that month. And it took 5 seconds and it just brings things down.
Yeah, I mean, we took these January, February, barely done. Meeting them at the last question, we keep, we made the ground on that today.
So, how about, your regular council meetings you have close enough? Do you call it closed session or executive session? What do you normally call it?
Yes.
Closed session.
Closed session.
Closed session.
So closed session, how often do you have? a
Very
closed
rare.
session?
I think we had once.
Do you provide dinner before a council meeting?
No.
So, I'm gonna defer a little bit, but my understanding of the Brown Act is that there is no problem for you, what time council meetings start? At 6, there's no problem for you to have dinner back there at 5:30, as long as you don't discuss business. So that's another opportunity for the 6 of you to get together, if you want to schedule half an hour before. I'm a huge advocate of dinner before a council meeting. How long are your council meetings last?
Yes.
Sometimes we've been here for 45 minutes and sometimes we're here 5 hours.
And, how many of you are coming from work? How many of you have time to go by home and get dinner before you have your meeting? I encourage it because it's helpful, because some of us, I would never accuse any of you of this, some of us get hangry. And it's nice to have a full stomach, and it's an opportunity for you to break bread with each other and just have some of those informal conversations. So that's another potential solution you can do.
Heard that from, colleagues like at council and stuff, when everybody's been having lunch or, getting together and talking with other city officials, that they're surprised that we don't do that, because it is part of like the morale building. I think it's strategic more than anything, that like they feed you, and especially if there's a closed session, because then you're gonna be there longer, but it just kind of helps everybody somewhat let your guard down, I guess, and you're just breaking bread and you're just like taking a breath after your workday,
Yeah, it's huge when all the staff comes together and getting to know the staff. You're sitting next to somebody and all of a sudden, here. Something, so it's really, it's an icebreaker, and it's nice to get to know people. Well, they do like luncheons or anything here, or they try to, most of all, it's
So I'm gonna ask a question, not to put anybody on the spot, but is that something you want to do? Because if we don't make a decision right now, if that's something you want to do before council meetings, you'll probably never have an opportunity to talk about it.
I don't know, can people be here? I mean, people are coming from work, I don't know. Sometimes being here at 6 o'clock is really hard.
I can be here whenever, so I know.
Are you targeting me because I walk in 10 minutes before the meeting starts, Mayor?
Tuesday and Thursday now, working until 5. I don't do 9 to 5, but I'm doing 9 to 5. I'm trying to getting here at 6:15. Even if it's a council meeting, I have to tell them, I don't need. You need to get on that freeway, bumper to bumper, you're not gonna get here, and see why you're coming. out of breath and getting in the door because it's hard. It is really hard.
Another option you can do is when you get to your org meeting, you can change your meeting start time to 6:30. And there's no rule that says you can't meet at 6:30 and then meet for dinner at 6.
And we'll bring lunch sometimes, but I'm glad she
Yeah.
puts like salami or something in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah, some snacks.
Yeah. I love that idea. I'm a huge proponent of breaking bread with everybody you can break bread with. And I would volunteer to actually make dinner the first day that we do this.
Is your
I got a
microphone
kitchen.
on? I want to make sure that.
It is, it is. I just turned it on. And we have a kitchen for crying. out. So, and I'm already here. And I got a bunch of people that would love to help.
You need to do that on.
What was that? Oh, like in the early, not in, late 80s, early 90s. 45 years ago. I've been here almost 20 years. I've been 45.
Oh, kids now say, are you from the 1800s, the 1900s? Or you were born in the 1900s? Like, geez.
Okay, so
Rough crowd.
Yeah.
what do you want to do? So let's do it this way. So this is the way that I love to work with councils and boards. And it just makes it easier to move the conversation along. And it using your thumb. So a thumbs up is yes, I'm on board. A thumb sideways is just, yeah, I can live with it. But I count that as yes, and a thumbs down, I just don't really like this idea. So show me your thumbs, where are you at? All right, I think you have direction.
Yes.
So,
Are we really voting on food?
Yeah.
On if, what are we really voting on if food is a good idea?
Are we changing?
Oh, no, I was just voting yes on meals together.
Yeah.
I think if
Yeah.
if everyone knows like dinner or whatever is, food is out at 5:30, that we can gather and just catch up on, however your last couple weeks been, whatever.
However, I would encourage you not to just say that we can. I would encourage you to say that we're meeting. at
It's a
5:30
commitment.
dinner. Because what'll happen is life will happen. And then you just defeated the whole purpose of what you're trying to get done as far as building that team.
5:30?
And then when you get to your org meeting in December, you can choose, hey, 5:30 is not working for us, we need to push it to 6, you know, push it or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, that would take formal action by the council, but, yeah, so we want to agendize that for.
Right. Okay.
Or by 5:30, not working.
For the first time, and we did it 5:30? Okay, so should we do that on the 10th of June? Do you mind if I could?
We're not experimenting.
Can they let you know after they eat your?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like you to be the judge.
Hey, your turkey is really good. You do the turkey at Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, two of them. Good.
Okay.
Excellent.
So some trust take home ideas. It's not about who you are, it is about who you are together. Why do we have the meeting after the meeting? That's the real interesting thing. You can tell how much a group trusts each other by when the meeting is out, how many people are talking in the parking lot after the meeting. Because that conversation should happen in the meeting. Okay, we're gonna move on to conflict now. So we can go out for another hour. Do you want a quick stand-up break to use the restroom, or do you want to just plow
I want to get a cup of coffee.
on? Please?
That's a good idea.
Like, no, out of my way.
Right next to the coffee, you know. I didn't know.
Okay, so we're back on. Can I get someone to read, the paragraph up there, a couple sentences about the fear of conflict?
Trust is critical because somebody who is likely to engage in an unfiltered, passionate, ability about the issue. This creates two qualities. First, stifling conflict actually increases the likelihood of the destructive back channels finding. Second, it leads to suboptimal decision making. Because the team is not going to be some of the two ideas of perspective of the community.
So the back channel politics, and we've all been in places where there's back channel politics. If we can get to a point where we have that trust, where we know we can say what we're thinking without fear of retribution or retaliation, then we can have those conversations, and you can walk out of the meeting knowing there's not gonna be a parking lot conversation because you said it in the room. So you think about things that sometimes are just so difficult to say. Let me give you an example. When somebody has their zipper down and they're presenting to a group, why is it so difficult for someone to say, hey, Fred, your zipper's down? I don't want to know if my zipper's down. Everybody's checking if my zipper's down. It's not down. You always check your zipper before you have that conversation. But why is it so hard to tell somebody their zipper's down? Comparisons.
It is.
If you're the person presenting and your zipper was down, wouldn't you rather know that your zipper was down?
Because eventually you're gonna see that your zipper is
Right.
down and you're gonna tighten it.
And how long was it down
How
for? Yeah.
I came, I was getting ready today, I was walking out the door and my pants were in check. My pocket, my pocket.
Thank you for
I
sharing.
don't know if somebody would have told me that.
Well, we would have used you for an example right now. Thankfully, you discovered. But it's that idea, if you're with your significant other and your zipper was down, did they tell you?
Yeah.
Because they trust that you're not going to be upset about it or whatever. And I think that's one of our fears, if there's not enough trust, when we tell somebody their zipper's down, how are they going to respond to us? And so we avoid that conflict or potential conflict of telling somebody their zipper's down. And so as we move on from this level of trust and get this foundation of trust, how can we engage in a level of conflict that is productive? Okay, not adversarial, not building camps, but productive to build that better decision. Waste time and energy with posturing, passive in building a better decision. Main issue is communication. Conflict, perceived incompatible differences that result in opposition. Definition of conflict. Traditional view of conflict is that all conflict is bad and must be avoided. All conflict is bad and must be avoided. I always debate whether I should tell this story or not, but I always find it to be very interesting. It's a bit morbid. Are you okay with a bit of a morbid conversation? So I had a secretary way back when, this was 25 years ago. And I was a high school assistant principal at the time. And she came up to me one time and said, I just don't understand why people fight. I've never had, and she's talking about with their spouses. She said, I've never had a fight with my husband. Ever. And I thought to myself, that's my wife all the time. We were pretty much freshly married, and I mean, that's an understatement. We didn't fight all the time, but I mean, we engaged in discourse often. And, you know, we have been happily married now for 5 years. We're getting ready to celebrate our 30th wedding anniversary. Did you all hear that? I'm joking. She knows I tell that joke. Anyways, here's what happened to that secretary about 5 years later. They moved to Texas. And her husband was caught transporting her dismembered body. Absolute true story. Her husband was caught, he murdered her and was caught transporting her dismembered body. And so again, a bit of a morbid analogy, but it fits really well with this idea of she didn't think that they could ever have conflict. And it creates this false sense of you have harmony on your team, because we don't always see eye to eye. We're never always gonna see eye to eye. And so there is gonna be conflict at times, and we just have to build that level of trust so we can have that conflict, knowing that it's not personal. It's about enhancing the relationship and building a better decision. Functional conflict, someone want to read that for me, please?
Functional conflict, conflicts that support a group's goals and improve its performance. Task conflict, conflicts over the content and goals of the work. Process conflict, conflict over how the work gets done.
So a little bit different view on a couple of different types of functional conflict versus this idea of dysfunctional conflict. Conflicts that prevent a group from achieving its goals, typically interpersonal. Remember when I said the fundamental attribution error? Do you remember what that was? I'll say it one more time. Fundamental attribution error. When somebody does something to us, we have a tendency to attribute it to a character flaw that they have. When somebody cuts us off on the road, when they're driving down the road, they cut us off. What's the first word that comes out of their mouth? Don't say it. Okay? We judge their character at that point. That's what this is talking about, is if we're doing something, we're assuming somebody has a character flaw when they do something wrong to us, as opposed to really thinking about the intent that they had when they gave that decision that's out there. Working from staying away from the dysfunctional conflict. I don't like you, so I'm gonna have conflict with you. That's about interpersonal, as opposed to talking about what we talked about in the last slide, a task or process conflict. How we get things done. So is conflict a bad thing? Is conflict a bad thing?
You
Talk to
said,
your partner about it real quick.
you said no.
I think it's how you resolve the conflict, or how you allow the conflict to take place.
Yeah. And then you have to apologize afterwards.
Yeah, I think the key is.
Agree to disagree.
Yeah.
So is conflict a bad thing?
You said no.
Why are we afraid to tell people that zippers down?
I just think it's embarrassing. That's it.
So the relationship between conflict and performance level, even with task conflict or productive conflict, we can take it too far. You can't always have conflict, because it won't work. It doesn't work. You have to find this optimal level between performance and conflict, because if your conflict goes too far, your performance goes down. But if you don't have any conflict, your performance is also down. So you have to find this optimal level of conflict to build the better decision, to build the buy-in to what it is that you're trying to do without impeding the performance. So here's the 5 conflict handling styles. How would you do it? Different situations, each one of those may be right. So, Rachel, I think it was you who talked about your mom, and she loved the first one. It'll work itself out. And it's not wrong, sometimes it will. You don't have to have conflict over everything. Right? Sometimes that's the right one. Accommodating, oh, fine, let's do it your way. The key to a happy marriage. Forcing, you have to do it my way. Sometimes you have to force. I mean, sometimes you have to do that. It's a law. Sometimes you have to do it that way. Compromising, Take negotiations with our friends in labor. And collaborate, trying to reach that win-win. Of that we come up with. So you can program conflict when there's not there, you can play the devil's advocate or, dialectic, I can say that word, dialectic, method. Teams that engage in healthy conflict, somebody please read those 4 bullets for me.
Have lively, interesting meetings.
It's
But-
got right there. Lively, interesting meetings. Remember, when you're having task or functional conflict, because you could have lively, interesting meetings where you're having non-productive conflict too. So, thank you, so.
Put critical topics on the table for discussion. Tackle issues head on, solve real problems quickly, minimize politics.
After meeting, we've already talked about that. Sometimes people are just absolutely uncomfortable with conflict. Here's the interesting thing though, I don't think anybody likes conflict. You just have to be willing to do it and make sure you go over it. Conflict generally is not very much fun. And I think for a lot of it is that last bullet right there, but it's not all fun because you're afraid you're gonna hurt someone. And sometimes it does hurt your feelings. We have to remember sometimes that if it's not that interpersonal conflict, it goes back to that story that I said earlier, how hard it used to be for me to apologize and how attached, emotionally attached we sometimes get to our ideas. Why do we get so emotionally attached to our ideas? Because sometimes we don't need to be, because it's not, the idea isn't even about us. And so we have to step back sometimes and really think about, is this the right thing to do? Is this the right thing to do? And that's something that I've taught myself often when I'm working with somebody whom I have an interpersonal conflict with, because we'll all have an interpersonal conflict with somebody. I have to step back and say, are they right? Just get rid of the interpersonal piece, are they right? And if you always ask yourself that question before you engage in the conversation, it helps often. Teams that master conflict agree on how to handle conflict. Okay, this goes back to your protocols, developing those protocols and thinking about that as a council. Except that some have skills others don't have. Meaning we all have that different window and we all have different dirt on our window. Some good dirt, some bad dirt, but we all don't look through the same window. They're not afraid to disagree, challenge, and question one another. Not interpersonally, but tasks. Don't go behind each other's back and have a meeting after the meeting. Get ideas from all the members and don't play politics. Don't play politics. And what politics means is the meeting after the meeting, basically. Here's what we found in your assessment results. All right, so remember it's that this was the number of you, which is a little bit different than the last one, who found something unacceptable. And so I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to read on this one why it might be important. Excluding other team members from difficult conversations. 4 of you said that that is unacceptable. 1 of you said that that's perfectly acceptable. And so there's a large variance of those 2. I don't know why this person said that it's perfectly acceptable. Maybe because of Brown Act. I don't know. Because on this particular team, sometimes you have to exclude other team members from difficult conversations because you just can't have it at the council meeting. So that's possible. Expressing anger through indirect actions rather than voicing it directly. All of you said, no, that's not good. You need to talk to the person. Using strong language when you're upset. Cussing or raising your voice. 4 of you said it's perfectly acceptable. 1 said it's tolerable and 1 said, I'm sorry. 4 of you said it's unacceptable. 1 of you said it's tolerable. And 1 of you said it's perfectly acceptable to use strong language when you're upset. Raising your voice when you get passionate. 3 said nope. 2 said okay. And 1 said, yep, that's fine, perfectly acceptable. And then over here, you can see this is the number of team members who admit they do this at work. So what I'd like you to do right now is move 2 seats to your right this time. And you don't have to bring your stuff.
There were just.
Yeah, we're in the same.
Yeah, that's not gonna work. So move 1 seat to the left. Thank you.
There's.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
are. Let's go across. No, you guys can't do that. Let me do this. Meet with somebody you haven't met with yet. How about that?
Somebody join me. Marcy has left my table.
Somebody from that table joined.
Yeah, perfect. This is high level math skills we're working on.
Yeah.
This is teamwork.
There you go, nice.
Yes.
Nice.
Very complicated.
Yeah, really. We can at least follow instructions. Still make it too complicated. So,
Okay, so you're discussing, just as a reminder, because I sidetracked you with my lousy trusted facility.
Yeah, you lost me.
Take a look at this. And what epiphanies or concerns do you have about what you see up here about conflict with your team?
I think that we're perfectly acceptable on like raising your voice and stuff, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because if the majority do feel that's not acceptable, that's a pretty big
Yeah.
contrast in, I feel.
That's free.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, yeah. A little bit, all depends on language you're using, you know, inflammatory language.
Well, and I think like strong language, okay, I can be neutral about that because yes, you can. I don't know, and that's also like depends on your own perspective, what you think is
Right.
strong. But yeah, like foul language, I think that's.
Yeah.
But also I think it's not necessary to raise your voice just because you're passionate about something either, like.
You can still make your point
Yeah.
with valid
It doesn't-
points
yeah.
without having to raise your voice. Yeah.
So
Um,
I know that happens, but I don't see like rating it that it's perfectly acceptable, you know, like I know
could
that
never
it
see that.
happens, but do we want that to be normalized? Like, no.
No,
So,
no,
I don't know.
definitely not. No, we want to be civil to
because
each other.
there's one that seems to be an outlier from the others. I'm almost wondering if it wasn't an error, you know,
That's
like
kind of what I
understanding the
figured.
scale or something.
Yeah, maybe it was a misinterpretation.
Yeah,
Because that seems so far
yeah.
the other way.
Yeah.
I mean, using strong language when you're upset, I mean, that's
Uh,
loud versus, you know,
Yeah,
hey, you know,
yeah,
not good, you know, that's not good. So yeah, I almost went to that too.
yeah. Although I can see somebody saying like avoiding someone when you're angry. That. okay,
That makes
that's-
more sense.
You know, that one
Yeah,
seems
I
like.
can
okay,
understand that
might
one.
not
Yeah,
be a
it's
error.
better off to just.
Yeah.
It's done, let's just move on, yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah, being outwardly emotional, I mean. I think that's normal if you're passionate about
Yeah.
something.
I think it's all like how are you conveying that emotion?
Right.
It's more the delivery than that, like, you're being emotional, you're saying you could be, you know, crying, you could be, and that's emotion, but it's not offensive or disruptive.
Right, you're not, well. It's not being outwardly, that's more internal.
Yeah.
That's a more personal thing.
Yeah,
Okay, pause for 1 second. We're not done talking yet. I'm gonna put you back to talking. But I'm gonna give you about another 2 minutes. And in that 2-minute time frame, though, decide on one thing with each of the partners right here that you want to share out with the group that you talked about. So keep talking about this, but also in the next 2 minutes, decide on one thing you want to share out. Go ahead.
I mean, misinterpretation of things, I think is there, but,
I'm like,
I don't agree with the other team members' difficult decisions.
Yeah, I think especially because of the nature of what we're doing up here, like, we all have an equal vote, so there shouldn't be exclusion.
No.
Yeah.
One that you feel strongly on?
Um,
Maybe the one that's.
Maybe one that's more split or.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about.
I kind of want to talk about the avoiding someone when you're angry, because like 3 people feel unacceptable, right? And then 2 tolerable and
Yeah, that's a
unacceptable,
good one.
but why would? I guess under what like if you need to, if that's how you cope with your angry.
Right.
Then it shouldn't be unacceptable, like you have to make space for people processing things differently.
Right.
But if we have, you know, the majority basically, that feels like,
Yeah.
no, you
St.
don't
St.
avoid
Paul's
it.
one of the 3 on the right, and the
Yeah.
3 that already voted for something passed.
Yeah,
That's a hard one, you know, that's.
but if there's that intolerance for that action, then I feel like that could be bad for the overall team. Because
Would agree with
there's,
that.
yeah, half
Yeah.
are like, no, that's unacceptable, and you're doing that, but
Okay,
you're
so wrapping up this
opening
conversation,
Yeah.
please. Please.
I have a strong question on everybody using strong language when you're upset. For somebody to say that's perfectly flexible, I don't know, I'm not judging, but you may want to have a conversation with me after. Especially if you were one of the team members that said that you do that at work. Like,
Did you know that my wife wakes up every morning and says the 4-letter F word?
well, do you?
Yeah, Fred.
What is that?
Okay, keep going, sorry. Oh.
Marcy said I'm leaving.
It's just, I think we have to have, yes, conflict is gonna, happen at times, but it goes back to what I said before, agree to disagree and move on, but the way that we treat each other here, I think building that trust and respect for each other. I don't think we have to use language, but that's.
Well, sharing with Marcy that, I work for a lot of different companies and I see that a lot. It's just every day now.
Strong
Every day
language.
There's some sort of conflict, and instead of sharing that. We had a problem that morning and, 3 people got let go. We tried every direction, but it kept coming back to this. It was just respect when nobody was watching. And finally it came down to how they were doing. You know, and, but it's more acceptable now and even in some of the most professional offices. It's happening. Shouldn't be.
We kind of were talking about that as well, because then we were wondering, I mean, we all kind of know each other by now, you know, somewhat to where I wouldn't have guessed anybody would say that, like, it's perfectly acceptable to a couple of those, so we were almost wondering, like, if it was a misunderstanding of the scale, and not saying that it's wrong to have that opinion or not judging somebody else picking that, but us kind of having gotten to know each other, I'm surprised to see some of those.
I don't think we've done that.
So just because this person thinks that it's perfectly acceptable, they may not think it's acceptable in this group. And I would imagine that whomever answered it like this, and please don't say who you are, I'm not looking for that at all. Whomever just learned a lesson today that, yeah, I don't need to cuss in this group, that's important not in this group. But I'll tell you what, I said earlier that my dad was a logger, I put myself through college driving a log truck. You talk about a whole different language that was out there, holy smoke, some of the people, you wouldn't believe how many 4-letter words can be a verb, a noun, and an adjective. And, you know, so I mean, it just depends, and if you go into a construction trailer for the construction management of a construction project, there's a whole other language in there. Mhm.
But given the benefit of the doubt here, if you think that it's okay at work, then what makes me think that you're not gonna say it up here, because up here you don't have so much, like financial. Yeah, you're not gonna get fired up here. So if you're able to do it at work, I'm not judging again, because I hope you don't tell that to me. But nevertheless, I mean, really, I mean, what stops you then at that point? I mean, that goes to that trust,
Yeah.
you know?
Anything
I,
goes.
I would think I'm just gonna give my opinion, I would think that that's a little strong, that there goes that trust. I would think that it is built the trust. Because, I mean, unless there's been a council member who's been cussing at meetings, whomever thinks that that's okay, clearly has a good filter to recognize that it doesn't work in this environment because that person hasn't exercised. But thank you for the point, and I think it's a great conversation for whomever said that. To hear, absolutely.
I think, we were talking about, well, what do we do? What can we do if this is happening? And I said that we don't have norms, at least since I've been on, and it's been years now in the council. Now it's only been
5 years, 30 years.
Yeah. But there are no written norms that we can refer to tell someone, we don't really do that in our council. We don't really agree with this because it's never been spoken. It's not written norms, how we run our council meetings.
I think we do have some
We
norms,
do
don't we?
have a council code of conduct, but we have asked in the past if we could, maybe not there, but we talked about like a sign where it's kind of like
Yes.
they're there and stated. So every time we're here and the audience is here, the public is here, it's just a reminder always of like
So,
the
yes,
rules of.
I will admit my mistake that it has been acknowledged. But not to the point where maybe even just as the Salinas Valley Waste Authority, on their agenda, at the very top, they list their norms. It's for everybody. It's for the board, it's for the council, it's for, the public. This is what our meeting stands, or, our norms. It's written right there. Having that piece right there on the agenda, right on the poster or whatever, it's easier for us, any of us, to be able to say, let's remember norm number 4. Or let's bring it back. I mean, it's easy to point to that as opposed to just say, you're out of order, or you need to stop talking like that. Because then it's a target.
Point of order, yeah.
If we can just refer back to what we agreed, then at least it brings some sort of control to that. But that doesn't mean that we dismiss it, it happens. But it may not be the place and time to address that, especially when our public is watching us.
You mind if I trade around to what you're thinking and what you're talking about?
Sure.
I'm gonna ask if your zipper's down right now.
But you can't get that new cover.
What are your norms? My point being is what good is a set of norms if you don't even know? And I think that's the point where you're going to right now, because actually, you know, the next slide is, what are your norms? We're not gonna do this exercise today because it would take too long, but what are your norms when it comes to conflict? Or what are your norms when it comes to council meetings? I don't know what they're written around. Is it the norms of the actual council meeting? Is it the norms of how the council treats each other? Is it the
both.
norms of how the council works with
It's
the
both, yeah.
manager?
Yeah, they know the rules and protocols is more about like how to run a meeting. And then have code of conduct, which is how they treat the judge, staff, and the public. So they're all addressed.
And so perhaps a study session in the not too distant future to review those and see if they're still relevant in what you all want them to say, what you want to hold yourselves accountable to. And you saw when I started, I asked you what your norms were. That wasn't by chance. I had no idea that you had a set of norms. It wasn't a setup either. It was the point of if you have the norms, you have to revisit them and remind yourselves about them, so you use them.
What we will say about the code of conduct is that it is more, I would say it's more general than norms, in that it's like, you'll treat everyone with respect, or it's not, it may not define what that means in a council meeting, it's more, I don't know, I think we could probably refine it a little better. We don't know. How about if we, have our own, something that we would say, we say, oh, we feel, I say like, we like a little, short little quote or something that we live by, you know, and maybe that could be one part of the future, to have our own, that, you know, when we start to veer off, we look and say, remember, this is what we pledge, and this is what, how we're going to remember.
So I appreciate that, but let me build on that. Somebody in here says that it's okay to cuss. So my meaning with that is not to pick on the person that said that it's okay to cuss or acceptable to cuss. That's not acceptable to the other people. So in order for a set of norms to truly work, the 5 of you, unfortunately, you're included in this part, the 5 of you have to agree on what they are, because if your norm isn't acceptable for me as a fellow city council person, I don't care what you say in your norms, I'm gonna do whatever the heck that I want to do. So that's where you gotta be careful, you gotta build a buy-in.
Okay.
And if we have a meeting with that, I will buy dinner. Okay.
No, he's cooking.
The second one.
Speaking directly to the.
I will buy dinner.
No, wait a second, she didn't say where. Is that like Ron's Steakhouse?
He took me to that.
Did the 2 of you want to answer?
Yeah, we were, well, because we're talking about the strong language one, we were talking about that one as well,
Right.
where we were saying we were surprised again about the perfectly
Somebody did it,
acceptable,
yeah.
because like, is that like foul language? I don't see anybody saying again, like making assumptions here, but that even when you're upset, that it's just like acceptable.
Yeah, maybe it was
Go
a
on
different
that page.
interpretation or
Yeah, so, because I tend to think that we agree more than disagree on like these things. And maybe, but that really isn't reflected then when you look at this and the numbers are kind of spread out. But my assumption actually would have been that we would be more, yeah,
Fine.
Remember. it doesn't all do the same thing.
yeah.
And so the idea is for you to come together and build a common window that you look through, even though you still have your individual.
Well, the one we really talked about more at length that we decided to share was avoiding someone when you're angry. Because we were talking about like, that could be problematic on a team if 3 people think that's unacceptable to avoid someone when you're angry. But then a couple more, that's tolerable, and 1 more perfectly acceptable. The perfectly acceptable or tolerable could be like, you know, that's how you, in those moments that it's best for that conflict if you step away. Or if you know, have some self-care, like I don't want to engage right now. But then if a majority is looking at that going, that's unacceptable behavior, avoiding because you're angry, that could cause,
Friction.
yeah, because it's such different perspectives.
Yeah, there's not much middle ground on that one.
Yeah.
A lot of it is the definition in our heads that we're putting in, what I'm avoiding someone when I'm angry. For 5 seconds, or a minute.
Right.
That's true.
You can't say that.
Yeah.
I get angry, I stop, because I know that for me personally, because you all don't know that, but my threshold right here, and so I can take it to another level, so I stop. That's my way of controlling myself. It's not for everybody else, it's for me to control if I can step out. Until I can, then, you know, maybe a day or 2, you know, and say, okay, you know what, I'm ready now. You know, but then somebody else is already mad again, so it's like.
So yeah, all depends on how long you're talking about. It might be if it's just for 5 minutes, or if it's for, you know, a day or 2 just to kind of cool down and get a different perspective, or if it's an ongoing thing.
So some take home ideas. Challenge the idea, not the person. Ask for function, not interpersonal. If everyone's on the same page at the beginning, it's probably going to be a very if everyone is on the same page at the beginning, it's probably not going to be a very interesting story. Agreement is the destination, debate and discussion pave the road. This is the big one, assume positive intent. Aim for social, intellectual, and professional integration of all members of the team. Express appreciation every time you feel it. The more you express it, the more you feel it, and the more it comes back around. All right, on to the third dysfunction, lack of commitment. Will someone please read me the paragraph at the top?
Without conflict, it is extremely difficult for team members to truly commit to decisions because they don't feel that they are part of the decision. This often creates an environment of ambiguity and confusion in an organization, leading to frustration among employees, especially top performers.
These symptoms revisit discussions and decisions. They're not committed to it, so they want to revisit it again. If they didn't like what it was. I think we've all heard of council meetings where someone came to the next meeting and wanted something reconsidered. That doesn't work in governance. Once a decision's been made, you can't bring it back and bring it back and bring it back. In fact, I would assume that you have some sort of bylaw that doesn't allow you to bring back decisions unless there's some change in circumstance. So have the conflict, have the debate about function and tasks there. Ambiguity about direction and priorities. And I didn't make this decision, it wasn't me. Clear command instruction is the main issue. So this is this idea of the difference between commitment and contribution. In breakfast, the chicken is the contributor, the pig is committed. Think about that for a second. The chicken contributes to breakfast, the pig is committed to breakfast. We need you all on the council to be committed to the decisions you make. And in order to become fully committed to those decisions, you have to have that trust, that conflict, which builds the buy-in and the commitment, not just the contribution. That lack of commitment, fuzzy goals, no clear direction, revisiting again, like I talked about, encourages second guessing of what you did. Strategies for building commitment. Establishment of a command goal. Intent is to provide the team with a common sense of purpose. Organizational clarification. The intent is to clarify team direction. Clarification of team principles. Intent is to create a set of norms for managing the life of the team. For example, meeting structure, schedules, preferred methods, communications, etc. Or your protocols. Team that commits creates clarity around priorities, moves forward without hesitation, and aligns the team members around, likely in this case, your strategic plan and what it is that's important to the city of Greenfield. Lack of commitments, members are confused about the purpose. When you come to a meeting, it's not all aligned about what your number one priorities for the city are. Afraid to make a wrong action, second guess each other, and keep discussing the same issue over and over and over. You can achieve commitment, know where they're going, learn from the mistakes, move forward, and get there first. Remember, it's the number one competitive advantage. I sometimes don't buy into the team's decisions because I don't have all the information, 3 said. Decisions are counter to my personal goals, 2 said. We're not clear about priorities, 2 said. 1 said, I don't trust my team to follow through. None apply, 1 of you said that. And there's not enough time during meetings, 1 of you said that. I think I got on 5 on, but anyways, you can see those. Okay. So let's go back to your original group. Back to your original seat and discuss what we have up here and what you think about it.
Yeah.
Here's the questions to go along with that. If you look on slide number 73 on page 37, the questions are: what means as a council to clarify priorities? How do you get more information communicated? And how can your meetings be modified to allow more time to help with commitment? Keeping these things in mind. Talk to your partner. Microphone or likely.
I like the idea of two people, maybe once in one. Because I don't imagine. And I'm sure that can, it's not gonna be easy. More the same. Fine, listen, fine. Information. It's like watching the movie. Yeah. How do you get more information? I like this month would be. That would. I think they're a little. You meet with it 4 times. You're saying. Make it an option. You meet every week. I think we start with the first one.
So by a show on your fingers, how many more minutes do you need? 1. Okay. We'll give about a minute more. Be prepared to share out one of your answers to these questions, just one of your answers. Okay, start wrapping up those conversations.
I think that even addresses the how do you get more information communicated.
Yeah, that's.
Okay, you want to start us off?
We were talking about like how to clarify priorities, because we were sharing, well, Marcy was sharing that when she was meeting with Paul, she was learning about like some of the ADA stuff that I've asked about it, like that's something that I was really trying to push. But not really having too many avenues at finding out what each other's priorities are. You know, we show up to the meetings and we share a few minutes or whatever, but we don't necessarily fully know or understand each other's priorities, and everybody can't be a champion for every cause. But like, if we know, well, we're really passionate about this one thing, so we can be advocating for that together. We're really passionate about a topic, you know, and like vice versa with everybody. Then, you know, you have a common goal, and it also the priorities start to take shape, because you see like, well, there's actually 3 or 4 of us that this is a top priority for us. And I think that makes us a more effective council, because then if you have 3 or 4 people working on the same thing or being that voice, you know, to try to advocate for stuff, more gets done than if it's one person, one voice. But the only way that we have to really have that communication right now is through Mr. Wood here, because he meets with each of us individually. So I have a proposal though, that kind of goes to the, how do we get more information communicated? If we could bring the newsletter back, like regularly get the newsletter, which I know is just what you wanted to hear, but if we have the newsletter, but if part of that could include like, when we meet, I know like I'll ask you for certain things, or like, what is the status of this? Or, you know, did you guys hear about, you know, 8th Street saying about this or whatever? And it doesn't have to be a recap of the conversations we're having, but just where we can see like, Councilmember Ortiz is visiting X place, or like the ranch, the place that you talked about recently. Like things like that, where we know we're working on similar things. Then, you know, if I knew Marcy was interested in the ADA stuff, then, or vice versa, she could see that and say, oh, let me reach out so we can talk about this. And then I think that also helps build our personal connections with each other, because then we're connecting about things that are important to us that affect council, but it's also just because we're naturally drawn to those specific things and want to connect with each other, and we can support each other, and that helps build.
When you're communicating outside the meeting, you know, and a little more of the council members learn how the others are thinking on you, that if you're going to careful, I don't think it's impossible, but it's like
Worded?
yeah. In that I think we kind of like what you said, it's like council member what she went to did and let her tell a story about it, as opposed to.
Or yeah, I think I was thinking like a bullet point thing, right? Like a bulleted list, like Ariana asked about status on 88 or update on 88, whatever, something, yeah, vague, because also like we all have an opportunity to talk one-on-one, and it's not like lay out the conversation, but just, I think or not necessarily that, but just like some way for us to be able to communicate our priorities, our individual priorities, in a way that there's transparency, and then we could partner with each other to actually like try to make things happen.
I think that would be the perfect time where you could, you know, you have a couple of comments, but maybe from the quarter, or there's a few agenda items that's like priorities, where you can either individually state your priorities or discuss them without making decisions. Probably that level, but you know, like but I think any of that can be done with something.
So could I ask a question? So I'm curious about this. So if a council member, what was an item on the last agenda? Just make something like those, What, PD, what was? PD? Oh, police department and fire vehicle. So let's say a council member had a question about, how much does a, police cruiser actually cost? So couldn't Paul take that question from a council member and email it out to the whole council and just say, council member asked how much a PD cruiser costs, PD cruiser costs $100,000.
Yeah, that's fine. It just, that's why it has to just be like, here, I'm just putting out caution that it just needs to be carefully managed in a way that, because the newsletter is more of a public facing document, where it could be
No, the one I'm talking about is the one that Paul would send just to council.
Oh.
Yeah, with like updates for the week. It was like weekly updates, but if we could just do like even a bi-weekly.
Yeah.
I was thinking it's more like a public meeting.
No,
No.
no.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
fine. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
was thinking.
Oh, okay, then we're
So-
good.
and just so,
So can we do that?
Yeah, no, not like.
Can we do that then?
Like,
No,
no.
no, no.
No,
Pause, I
internal, because the whole point would be to like facilitate us
Mhm.
aligning our priorities or figuring out who our priorities align with on projects. to move things forward.
well, see, now that.
But then,
That's a.
We're back to that.
Like collaborating or sharing ideas,
Mhm.
that needs to be in.
Cause I'm already feeling jealous
Yeah,
that you
same.
two are
And
talking
this
about
is
me.
too.
That's public meetings, just set some priorities. All agree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it would be
then
nice,
that's what
it
it's
would be
talking
nice,
about.
yeah.
Not a
I have a
special
vision
meeting.
board in my office, and I know it's mine, not everybody else.
Well,
Yeah.
Paul has one, that's why I got that information from.
So we're also doing a budget workshop that will go over all the numbers, but it's also an opportunity to say, with the ADA thing that we talked about.
Mhm.
We talk about, okay, so if we want ADA, whatever level we decide that you guys want to spend or
Mhm.
commit to ADA improvements. We can talk about that at that time.
When we do it, you can have something like, but the community, help with that.
Well, that's what, that's what the annual
Yeah.
budget workshop is for.
Oh, but people, the thing
Yeah.
is that.
That's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, that's
It's
exactly.
what to do, but the thing is that.
Do we promote this?
A lot of people don't understand it. It's two separate things. We're talking about budget here, right? Oh, we're talking about money, but
Nobody wants to go.
what's the problem, you know, when you see that if they think about it different, they're not gonna think it's the same. I'm sorry. But
You know, districts, and the idea has been brought up about, hey, go to your districts and have district meetings, and talk to them about, you know, hey, what would you like to see?
Yeah.
You know, whether it's street improvements or park improvements or whatever it is.
We,
We're actually drafting something that we send out to the district. My district, to see. What is it, what are they seeing?
And what would they like to see?
What they like to see.
Is there a survey that
We-
we
yeah, I
can
was
send
gonna say
out
that.
electronically or something even with our water bill that says, there's a survey, QR code, takes you to that survey, answer it. I know we can't control who's answering it, but you know, if we get the information out there.
Right, yeah.
But like, to your point, you said, council meeting, again, people don't have data from, tell you what they want. You know, I mean, supermarket or, whatever, they do relay the feeding to public.
And we have, sorry, and we have been internally discussing a citywide survey to go out with the bills, next spring, summertime. It's about a year away. What we want to do is we push for metrics, to get metrics out there to see how we're performing. Is that appropriate? Are those the appropriate metrics, and are they the appropriate, are we doing a good enough job? Do we think we're doing a good enough job? Doing things right? And then taking those same things, those same questions out to the public to see what their, you know, one-on-one, what do you think? How are we doing? Right, so yes, it's in the works. It's a ways off.
I'm thinking of our younger generation that is totally, you know, their thumbs are gonna be looking different about 10 years from now. Who believe this more than me talking to them, or they heard something or they said something, but does that align with what is here? So this is a really good device to use to communicate both ways. Kind of like they used to do, interviews on the street, what, you know, and then it's online.
And you can do surveys and things like that on them.
Especially on like, well, I know a lot of people use Face, but not everybody,
Mhm.
Facebook.
Yeah.
They don't even call it.
Only people over 40.
That's right.
So there you go. So talking
Only
to.
people from the 1900s.
Talking to.
They're not
So I'm gonna do a little reality check.
Okay.
I'm perfectly fine, we're okay, so I'm not upset or anything like that, but we're running behind a little bit. Because there's been some great conversation, so I just need some direction on how you want to proceed right now. We probably have another, at least a half an hour, 40 minutes of stuff. You want to go over a little bit, do you want to skip through a few things? What's your preference on where you want to be?
I need to pick up somebody at afterwards.
Okay, so I will pick it up here a little bit, and that's okay, I'm perfectly happy to do that.
That was it, I.
I'm with you.
Fine,
Is
I-
that two?
Okay, I
Yeah.
didn't hear anybody say,
Yeah, so
"I
three of us.
stay late. I did not hear anybody say that, so. Okay. So we talked about commitments. You must know where you are going before you start your trip. We were all talking about that right here.
Mhm.
Figure out what those goals are. Make sure your team is traveling together. And that's where you've got to get that common, kind of like we talked about with the norms, you all have to be on the same page, rowing in the same direction. It may not be a lack of commitment, it may be a lack of direction.
Mhm.
Get that clarified. Now we're gonna hit on dysfunction 4, which is accountability. Will someone read that paragraph for me, please?
When teams do not commit to a clear plan of action, peer-to-peer accountability suffers greatly. Even if most focused and driven individuals will hesitate to call their peers on counterproductive actions and behaviors, if they believe those actions and behaviors will never agreed upon in the first place.
Trust allows you to have conflict, which allows you to build commitment, because you said your piece, which allows you now to hold people accountable and hold yourself accountable. Teams without accountability, they miss their deadlines, mediocre performance, a lot of it's not my fault. It's somebody else's fault. Remember, fundamental attribution error, blame it on outside factors. Main issue, shared experience. Avoidance of accountability encourages mediocrity, misses deadlines and key deliverables. Teams that hold each other accountable ensure performers feel pressure, the poor performers feel pressure to improve. Identify potential problems quickly by questioning one another's approaches. Avoidance of accountability, some members coast. Team achieves uninspired outcomes. The project drags out, or one person does all of it. Teams that embrace accountability hold each other to standards for behavior and results. And you develop what those standards are. Give that constructive feedback and respect one another. Here's what you said about accountability. Okay? 5 said have clear priorities. 4 said give one another feedback. 3 said publicly share goals. 3 said review progress against goals during team meetings. 2 said address missed deadlines immediately, and then I'll let you read down through the list. Turn your partner and talk a little bit about accountability. Share with you one more slide here. You can get it too. So you can work on both slides. Remember, this is a Likert scale. Yellow is caution, red is concern.
We're getting better.
Okay,
Okay, well, there's no that much red.
Ones where team members point out one another's behaviors that hold the team back. Team members question one another about their current approaches and methods, and team members offer unprovoked constructive feedback to one another. Okay, so you're talking about these 2 slides right here and what impressions they leave with you.
think we need to have the.
And then for some primer questions, you can go to slide number 83, which is the next slide on page number 42. It has these questions right here.
Right, it's okay, it's a sad moment. I just didn't get it. Giving my feedback is one thing, receiving feedback is fun. People have to receive, not just dish it. And feedback, not necessarily criticism. Publish your goals. Progress, yes.
Okay, about 30 more seconds, start wrapping up those conversations, please. Right. All right, bring it back in. If there's something really profound that you want to share with the group, go ahead right now. Otherwise, I'm going to keep moving because I want to get us, here's what I'm trying to do right now. I'd like to get us through results, which is the next one. And then there's some overall areas that you scored high in as a team that I want to highlight. And some.
Forward.
I don't want to end on just the stuff that we're struggling with, okay? All right. Can someone read the paragraph about results?
When team members are not holding one another accountable, they increase the likelihood that individual ego and recognition will become more important than collective team results. And which occurs the business effort and the team starts doing that.
Teams exhibit these symptoms. Stagnates or fails to grow, avoids obstacles in individual goal focus. Outcomes are not at the desired level. Main issue is shared values. Teams that focus on results win. Remember, the ultimate competitive advantage is teamwork. Retain achievement-oriented employees, minimize because you know what? Winners want to hang out with winners. Minimize individualistic behavior, learn to subjugate individual egos and agenda for the good of the team, get things done, stay focused, keep star performers, take care of each other. Inattention to results, get nothing accomplished, work on the wrong things, lose star performers, and team members take care of themselves. Here's what you said about results. 4 of 6 said there needs to be more emphasis on personal goals than team goals. That you're saying that there seems to be more emphasis, on personal goals rather than team goals. You're here as an individual person as opposed to a member of the bigger Greenfield Council team. Insufficient, ineffective process and structure. 2 of 6 of you said that, and then not many said most of the rest. Here's where you were in your caution area and concern areas. Concern area was team members are quick to point out the contributions and achievements of others. That doesn't happen often. When the team fails to achieve collective goals, each member takes personal responsibility to improve the team's performance. Team members are humble regarding their own contributions to the team. Team members value collective success more than individual achievements. And team members place more importance on team results than on titles and status. So talk about this slide for a second with your partner, the yellow ones. Oh, the more yellow, more yellow. I have to build trust, I can't falsify documents. The interesting one, if I was to pick well, I'll wait and I'll tell everybody. Yeah, I'm gonna bring you back in. So if I was to pick the concern out of all of these that I have up here was that there seems to be a mutual feeling that instead of coming together as a team, you're still coming together as individuals on your individual platforms. And to a certain extent, that's always gonna be there. I don't want to be naive and say that that's not gonna be there because you have different beliefs and you have people who elected you, but there's my eraser word, you need to come in together to really build that team. And the key thing that I think you need to do right now is really establish what your priorities are as a city. And I don't know if how far your strategic plan went into that, I'm not sure.
It's just having the task level.
Mhm.
So there's objectives, there's sub-objectives, there's projects, and there's tasks within the project. And it's very, very detailed. I mean, it's we had 5 people say that there's not enough direction. Wasn't me, I didn't say that, so there's 5 people that did, but that, you know, I think that's a communication issue. Because it doesn't mean that it's not there, because it certainly is. And every year around budget time, I make sure that we revisit it again, because I want to make sure that the strategic plan is still the way we want to go. So we'll go over it again. And I think probably when we look at the last 2 or 3 things here, I think it's important that we do that, because we say, or at least I say, that the strategic plan is the plan of the city, and it is prioritized. Public safety is number 1. Number 2 is revenue generation, so that we can pay for number 3, which is all the wonderful things that we want to do for the city. And number 4 is building the workforce that is fair to them, fair to us, and gets us every place that we want to be. So I'm thinking, let's communicate the strategic plan better, and then if everybody's got an agenda, that's awesome, because that's what you've got. Let's see how that fits in with the strategic plan. And let's see, okay, that's important. ADA is a great example, because that's all. Number 1, priority 1 is public safety. And that's everywhere. That's police, that's fire, that's public works, that's parks. It's everything. It's streets. It's everything. It's making everything safe. So that falls right in line with our number 1 priority. So the fact or the site that we look at and we say that this is something that people are passionate about, hey, let's say, okay, that's fine. That falls within our number 1 priority. Is everyone else going to buy into it?
Yeah, because remember, you have enough money to do anything you want to do. You don't have enough money to do everything. It's all about priority. All right, so looking at the overall pyramid and where you fell. So in the middle here, you hit in the medium overall, and in the bottom where trust is, and at the accountability and results, you're in the low area or areas for concern, things that you need to think about and build upon. Specifically, you can look at it this way as well, saying the same thing, just a different visual. Here are some of the things that were identified as strengths of the team. First one is, team members are passionate and unguarded in their discussion of issues. Behavior conflict, you were at a 4, right? That was your strongest one. Team members are interesting and compelling. You don't think each other are boring. That's a good thing. Scored well there. During team meetings, the most important and difficult issues are discussed. You performed well there as well. Team sticks to decisions and commitment. You scored well there as well. And team members consistently follow through on promises and commitments. Scored well there. Those are your top behaviors. Here's your target areas. Team members ask one another for input regarding their area of responsibility. That's kind of a weird one for this group, though. It doesn't fit right on. Team members acknowledge their weaknesses to one another. Team members willingly apologize to one another. Team members point out one another's behaviors that hold them, the team back. Team members question one another about their current approaches and methods. And team members offer unprovoked, constructive feedback to one another. Here's where you had the largest variance in your answers, where you had some people on the council saying you're doing really well at this, and some members saying that you didn't. Team members can comfortably discuss their personal lives with one another. 3 said almost never, and 3 said usually. So that's interesting. When conflict occurs, the team confronts and deals with the issues before moving to another subject. 2 say almost never, and 2 say usually. And 2 people in between. The team ensures that members feel pressure from their peers and the expectation to perform. 3 say rarely, sometimes usually, and almost always. Team members ask for help without hesitation. You can see the variance there. Team members point out one another's behaviors that hold the team back. So that was actually one of your strengths, but it still had it was unfair. It was one of your targets. So some final thoughts as we start to wrap up this evening. Effective teams turn common dysfunction into strengths, and they're really building on that level of trust. And I'm not going to talk about that one right now. Here's something that I would like you to work on or think about, and that is, what is one thing that council can do differently to support your work as a council? Based on what you have learned, what is one thing that council can do differently to have more positive results? And then what is one thing you can each do to help the council have more positive results? So the council can do versus you personally at those last ones. So take a second and talk about that. Those questions. Talking partner about there. Let's do a whole group here. What do you think? You guys want to talk about a whole group?
Yeah.
So what's one thing that council can do differently to support your work, your priorities, what it is that you're doing? You've talked about it a lot today, so I don't think there's anything new. Are you okay?
Yeah, just got like a cough attack.
I just want to make sure. you're
I'm okay now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
As far as individually, I think I'm gonna try to reach out to people. Have coffee or.
You're very great, because when I came on board, he's the one that reached out to me.
I think any of those things that we're in the round, in the trust category, is gonna help everything above it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so it's really, get to know each other.
Yes.
understand where we're coming from.
But then,
And
the-
then, once we kind of feel comfortable with that, take a little chance and say something that you wouldn't necessarily just say to an acquaintance. To get to know each other better, so we can all kind of figure out where everyone's coming from and start building the trust.
at your dinner.
I use that word trust a bunch of
Somehow we can remove the politics and get to know each other.
Yeah.
Because it hurts when you hear comments from our constituents and they call out one of our council members on something. That hurts me, even though they're not talking about me. Usually by the time they talk about me, is that me? But I guess we as we are not districts, we are a city. And when I hear words like platform, you ran on this platform, you ran on this, I don't even remember saying I had a platform. Because we all said the same thing, we all want to serve, we are all in one line. But somehow the public sees us as four different and easily attack another. And I know that we can't comment during public comments about something, but it's really difficult to hear that when someone is tearing down someone from your own team. I think there should be a time when, whether it's we consider chambers or locker room, and we can just get together and just help each other feel a little better, because we were just cut down. Sometimes 2 or 3 of us are cut down. And we just let it go. And it just, everybody can just blah, 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 and let it go, and we just move on. And there was some way that we could just at least support each other. Yeah. How can we do that differently than just let the arrows come? And I don't know, maybe it is treating the chambers like a locker room, and coach takes it in, coaches take us in, and we have that coffee, that break, that peanuts or something. Just that little timeout, and maybe it happens before, it doesn't have to be dinner, maybe at 5:30 we gather together just in the locker room to, make sure everybody's okay, good, is anything you need, da, 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 da. Okay, guys, let's go team, no, everybody in there, woo! Knowing then we come in, starting as a team, not as we show up individually and pop down because we're all busy and have everything done. But maybe once in a while, once a month, one of those meetings, I don't know, where we just gather ourselves together and support each other and speak positively about things and encourage one another.
I think we actually crossed some hurdles. I know one for sure that really depends on my mind. For our council here is the excusing each other when we're at them, which was a real big thing here. It was getting messy, and I was partly to blame too. And I think now that I think we're building some respect and now. I don't know why somebody got in, or they can call in or whatever, as long as it's done the right way, or you're calling in, and, you're asking to be excused, then you should excuse it. Which before I wouldn't, but now I do. Because I don't know what's that heard the circumstances. Because I can maybe hear another thing about the same thing, yeah. Not everybody like it. I think that was one hurdle that we passed, and it seems like it's been kind of going, okay now. We're not asking the questions, we're saying we can call in. Thanks.
I want to be mindful of time. Individually though, what I would like you to think about, what is one thing you can do, and you don't have to share that out right now, what is one thing you can do to help support this team moving forward in building the 5 levels, the trust, the conflict, the commitment, the accountability, in the results, in this buy-in, the 5 levels. All right, so this is just what we did at the beginning. This was a learning criteria. My ask of all of you is, as we wrap up here, our final wrap up is gonna be just closing thoughts from Paul. If you wanted to have any closing thoughts, or if any of you want to have closing thoughts, you're welcome to as well. But before you do that, I just want to give the warning, so you be prepared. If you could just scan the QR code with your phone, this helps me. The other thing that I ask of all of you is, if this worked for you tonight, we operate completely on word of mouth. We don't really do any advertising or anything like that. I just ask that you share this with your colleagues, if you're happy. This is what I do, so I enjoy going out and doing it and have fun and love working with folks like you. So, thank you, everyone. You want to wrap us?
Sure. Thank you for everybody's, input today. And Fred, thank you for going through this. It's a great exercise. You know, I will address that last one on there because I think it's really important, especially as your connection to staff. I will commit to communicating better. It's not that easy. Everybody knows. I mean, everybody's schedule is crazy. But hopefully I'm going to be getting somebody on board that's going to be able to help me with my schedule. And I'm gonna make a concerted effort to communicate things out in a more orderly fashion. I've always wanted to get back to the weekly update. It's just, it's difficult, but if I've got some help, we could probably do it. So thank you all. And if you want to do more of this, I think it's pretty evident that it's helpful. So, and it's a great thing. So thank you. Yeah.
I just want to say, I think it's come out tonight that we agree on most stuff and we disagree. I think we're gonna all be judged as a team. So I want to get together more things we can do rather than. I think we've had some good insights, like the breaking bread, some of your reports. I mean, we've had some really good ideas of all that stuff. I personally think we should continue these.
Yes.
fairly regularly.
Mhm.
And again, thank you for coming in. Great to see everybody here.
I feel like you brought us a little bit closer, so thank you.
Happy to hear that. All right, it's under your control now.
All right, I think that was it. And we're gonna go get people.
Yes.
I can drive to Sacramento.
Oh, are you driving back right now?
Yeah, I've got to be in Sacramento tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. So,
Drive safely. You'll be making it.